The October 18th meeting of the Board of Education is now in session. Please rise for the invocation. O God, we pray to administer that which is just in all educational policies, being ever mindful of your guidance, stir us to action with love, wisdom, and understanding. Pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 2.03 is approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Motion passes. Item 2.04 is establish agenda order. Ms. Nally. Your button was on. Oh, they haven't moved. I'm sorry. The buttons are wrong in front of me. Mr. Reinhardt.
I move that we add an information item to the agenda, item 6.06, position regarding the SC Maglev project.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Okay, item is added to the end of the agenda. Item 2.05 is recognitions, and Mr. Alston, if you would join us up front.
Good evening. I am Anthony Alston, the Regional Assistant Superintendent for the Chesapeake and North County clusters, and the former Executive Director of the Office of Equity and Accelerated Student Achievement. It is in that latter role that I recently had the opportunity to work again with the United Way of Central Maryland, and why I'm so pleased to present tonight's first board recognition. The United Way recently launched its On Track for Success program in 3 schools in the Baltimore region. And we are certainly pleased that Meade Middle School is one of the schools that will benefit from this effort. Statistics show that in Central Maryland, 2 in 25 students won't graduate on time. In the areas of the most challenging communities, that number rises to almost 10 in 25. On Track for Success targets schools in challenging communities and works with those schools to provide resources aimed at keeping students on the path to achieve and receive their diplomas. Through the On Track for Success program, the United Way will support Meade Middle School to develop a variety of strategies, interventions, and resources to support both students and their families. A part-time case manager funded through the program and an additional part-time social worker funded through my former office will use early warning system data such as attendance, behavior, and course success to identify students in need for support. We hope this partnership is another of our tools to help elevate all students and eliminate all gaps. And we are proud to be a part of it. At this time, I would like to invite Mr. Franklin Baker, the CEO of the United Way of Central Maryland, forward to say a few words. After which, I'd ask the board to join Mr. Baker and Meade Middle School's principal, Ms. Chris de Guzman, down for a photo.
Thank you, Anthony. It is a pleasure to be with you all this evening. We couldn't be more excited and honored to have launched this incredible and important partnership. United Way has long been committed to Anne Arundel County, committed to its residents, its families, and students. For several years, we've based our family stability work in the county, working with families who are facing eviction, working with families who have already ended up in the shelter system to help them either stay in their home or find a new one. The ultimate goal of our housing programs, though we certainly are focused simply on ensuring families are housed, is actually to keep the school-aged children in the families we serve. Keep them housed in their home schools, as we know the disruption multiple moves and shelter life can have on our young people. Similarly, our goal for the On Track for Success program is to support students to be successful in school all the way to high school graduation. Every 26 seconds, a student in the U.S. drops out of high school. That's roughly 7,000 each day and 1.2 million students every single year. We simply cannot stand by and allow these numbers to continue. We're committed to students across Central Maryland. We want them to know they are not alone, that United Way, along with the support of our school partners like you, the principals, teachers, parents, area businesses, we will fight together for their education, success, and bright future that each one of them deserve. On Track for Success is based on a best practice model developed by researchers at Johns Hopkins University, and it focuses on the proven predictors, as Anthony mentioned: attendance, behavior, coursework, or simply put, ABCs. These predictors are great because they help us to focus on dropping out of school to help educators identify students who are struggling. Bringing together a school-based team to review the data and share knowledge about the student enables them to connect students and sometimes their families with academic coaching or counseling, health resources, and much more to get them back on a path toward success. The program was piloted in Baltimore City last school year at South Baltimore's Marie G. Faring Elementary Middle School, and we expanded this year, as Anthony also mentioned, to include 7th graders at Meade Middle School, as well as 9th graders at the feeder school for Benjamin Franklin High School in Baltimore City. So we saw such great results last year, and we expect to see the same at Meade Middle. We're grateful to Principal de Guzman and her team for their warm welcome and for partnering in this incredible work. Her team is already implementing many related practices, and we're excited to bring it together for the success of Meade's students. The impact can be tremendous, not only on individuals, but our community as a whole. Those who do not graduate high school are cut off from 90% of the jobs that are available in this country. And students who don't graduate from high school earn approximately $300,000 less than their graduating peers during the course of their lifetime. They also die younger, they experience more health issues, they vote less, marry less than their graduating peers. In addition, these students tend to have children who do not graduate high school, thus continuing a cycle of poverty in their families. But together, we'll make a difference. We're honored to bring the On Track for Success program to Anne Arundel County and Meade Middle School. Thank you again for the partnership and all you are doing to ensure a bright future for your students. Thank you so much.
Good evening, Mrs. Hummer, Dr. Alato, and members of the board. I'm Steve Gray, Director of Design and Print Services and Executive Producer of our cable channel, ACPS TV. About a year and a half ago, Bob Sonera, our television broadcast manager, was having his car serviced. At the shop, he met Jordan Potter, a Cat South student. Jordan had interned at the shop, and he was so successful that they hired him, and he's been there since. Bob came to me with the idea for a series to showcase successful graduates of Anne Arundel County Public Schools. Because it fits so well with the Faces of ACPS campaign, we met with Caroline McCurdy in the Office of Partnerships, Development, and Marketing, and we wanted to see how our departments could work something out and accomplish this together. The result of that collaboration is a series, Then and Now, Alumni Success Stories. Our first episode featured Jordan, and so far we've seen South River High School teacher Iris Crankfield, Delegate Mark Chang, and Olympic gold medalist Matthew Centrowitz. On upcoming shows, you'll meet a supervising producer for the Learning Channel, a grant writer for a nonprofit humanitarian organization, a retired teacher who spends his time making independent films and drag racing, and a certain board counsel who you may already know. I'm happy to tell you that this year, Then and Now has been honored with the Telly Award in the category of documentary series for TV. The Telly organization has been recognizing excellence in video programming for nearly 40 years. Recipients this year include Microsoft, the History Channel, ESPN, NBC, and HBO. We are very happy to be in their company. As they come forward, please join me in congratulating the people whose talent and creativity are so successfully showcasing the outstanding accomplishments of our graduates and our school system. John Francis, videographer and series editor. Lori Bertiguez, digital graphics designer. From the Office of Partnerships, Development, and Marketing, Jennifer Halstead and Lauren Gray Hawkins, producers. Eric Cloyd, videographer. And Bob Sonera, series creator.
Very good. Making sure everybody's. Yeah. Caroline, can you sit right here? I'll do anything you want me to do. Let me see. I want to be able to see everybody's face.
Which way?
Here, you can move in just a teeny bit. Okay. That's everybody. That is everybody. Great. Everybody smile. Oh, there we go. Okay, one more. Perfect. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Our final recognition for the night is one that is a little difficult to do. If you may notice that we have an empty seat up here. Teresa Burge has resigned from the board after 9 years of service, and the gap she will leave is greater than just that empty seat. Much of what goes on with the board is not present out here in front, and Teresa has always brought an invaluable knowledge and history of the board and expertise. She knows to ask questions that I don't even think to know to ask. And she will be very difficult to replace on here. And I have so enjoyed serving with her professionally, but also as being a friend. And so I want to thank Teresa for her wonderful service to Anne Arundel County Public Schools and to all the children that she has helped over these 9 years. So, anybody else?
Well, Teresa, try to just say goodbye without crying, but Teresa and I have worked together for 9 years, and we haven't always agreed, but we've always smiled, and we've always worked really, really hard. Teresa is one of the hardest working board members I have ever been with. You can always count on her. She was always here and prepared and had, as was said, she always had the right questions. So you will be missed personally and professionally.
Ms. Korbelak.
Teresa, I don't think we have any Kleenex up here tonight, so we'll try to stay calm. I know people say that we're all replaceable, but the truth is that we're really all a part of a body, whether we are at work or volunteering or at home. And when a part of your body is no longer there, the entire body functions very differently. All of your expertise as our budget master and your institutional knowledge that you've had from 9 years of serving on the board is going to leave us with a gap and make our body function a little less efficiently for a long period of time. Thank you for your service, and you will be missed.
Mr. Gilliland.
Thank you, Madam President. I normally don't write comments down, but I needed to for this one. And so I do apologize for reading. But Teresa, I've got to say I was very honored to serve with you, and I appreciate all the support you gave me when I joined the board, especially in the area of the budget. I will always remember, but I very much appreciate that even when we disagreed, you always answered the question that I asked objectively. You let me make my own decision or vote the way I wanted to vote before you told me how bad my vote was and how bad my decision was and questioned how I could sleep at night. But joking aside, and kidding aside, I loved the fact, and this is one of the bodies where we can do this, but I love the fact that we could disagree, debate, argue, solve the world's problems in the parking lot after meetings, and do all of that when we disagreed, even without being disagreeable. It's funny when you join a body like this, you don't always know who you're going to grow closest to. I think because we not only sat together out here in both seats, at the end we sat together and then sat together right here, I think we just grew close, and I'm always going to appreciate the time that we spent together here. I'm glad our paths have crossed, and I'm glad we had a little bit of fun doing it. I know there's going to be a more formal presentation for you later, but one of the things I was asked to do, because you asked for it, our portrait this year does have lightning in the background, and the lightning is striking your head. And I'll be honored to give you your placard as well. So again, thank you for your service, for all the lives you've touched. And also in the midst of doing this, you've been one hell of a mom. You've got a beautiful family. As we talk about our families and we get to know each other, I just think you've been an awesome mom, an awesome wife. Ben's a good guy. You just have an amazing family, and thank you for all that you've done for them as well as for all of our students.
Ms. Sasso.
In the short time that I have known Teresa, since I've been on the board only a year and a half, Teresa is truly the finance and the budget whiz of this board. There is absolutely no doubt. You can ask her anything that has happened for years or years even to come. Teresa will have an answer for it. And above all, I thought it was really very honorable and great of her when she stated she was leaving the board and she was resigned. I sent her a message and said she would be missed, and she said in the email back, you can call me anytime you need help or you need a question answered. Thank you, Teresa.
Dr. Arlotto.
Mrs. Burge, let me echo the sentiments of your colleagues here on the board to say thank you. I am certainly a better superintendent. The people don't understand the conversations that we've had over the past 9 years and certainly the past 3.5, almost 4 years. You were president of the board when I was offered my first my contract here, and so I am indebted to you for that, so thank you. But we've had conversations. You have been willing to challenge me as an educator, as a leader of this school system, challenge us to make us better, and know that it's greatly appreciated. I also want to echo the sentiments of Mr. Gilliland and thank your family, Ben, and your beautiful children. It's a sacrifice. And I hope the folks know in this room and that may be watching that to serve on a board like this, to do this public service as you have done is a sacrifice, and your family has sacrificed for the betterment of the school system, and I thank you. And ultimately, and most importantly, when you do public service, you want to walk away knowing that you've done good work, and you have. Please know that as you walk away tonight, you have done good work. We are a better school system because of your time and your dedication and your caring and your love for the students and staff of this school system. Know that your time has been well spent. You will certainly be missed, but know that your time has been well spent. And so would you come forward and join us down front?
Debbie. You can do that. I want to thank my colleagues for being so kind. This was a very difficult decision, but one that I think was best for me and my family. But to be honest, I don't think that I've ever felt as privileged as I have for the last 9 years serving on this school board. And I want to thank all of you, all of the people of the county, for allowing me to do that. I think it's made me a better person. I think it's made me understand things more. I think that it's been one of the best experiences of my life. And honestly, resigning was one of the hardest decisions I've ever made. But thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Everyone needs something to say. You're scaring her away, is that it?
All right. Item 2.06 is school community highlights. Anyone? Ms. Korbelak.
Last Friday evening, I had the opportunity to spend a couple hours with the Leadership Development Institute, our LDI program, talking about how we come about forming a budget from the school board perspective. But I got to meet a lot of great folks and had a really wonderful Friday evening, and I want to thank everybody for the opportunity to do that.
Mr. Gilliland.
Thank you again, Madam President. I just want to just use my time to say thank you to a couple of people. Last night I was honored to attend the joint AACPS and AACC adult ed graduation for GED and National External Diploma completers. And we know in the state of Maryland, those who pass the GED exam or complete the NEDP program receive Maryland high school diplomas. There is no equivalency certificate. And I was there in a work capacity last night. But I do want to say, you know, those events don't happen and the successes don't happen without people behind the scenes really helping to guide that success. So certainly Michelle Batten, Kathy Lane, and Ronnie Noodleman, who is not here tonight, but she's our NEDP director. I just want to say thank you to all of you for what you do.
Ms. Sasso.
During the month of end of September and October, there were two conferences that I attended on behalf of the AACPS and the National School Board Association and the Maryland Association of Boards of Education. And the one of NSBA, I want to emphasize it because it had to do with the cube of the Council of the Urban Boards of Education, and I represent the National Hispanic Council for the Eastern region of the United States. And it was a conference that basically addressed specifically the creation of an equity policy for all of the schools in the United States. That's basically what NSBA is working on right now. And it was really quite outstanding to see the presentations, and basically out of it came different ideas on how to create a framework to be able to give it throughout the United States through the different schools. And on the Maryland's Association of Boards of Education, it's a once-a-year meeting which brings together a lot of the counties throughout Maryland. And it's really important to know that throughout these conferences, basically, the people that go there for those 2 or 3 days, which is basically what it takes place, are there to truly, truly work and truly try to put together an educational system for Maryland that will rise above what it was the year before. And from it, it was really outstanding to figure out. We were given some statistics which I thought were really quite impressive when you look at them. And one of the things was that 5,000 of the students per year are educated through MSDE. They're the Juvenile Services Educational Program. They also gave us the numbers of the children that are in disability, the children that are basically receive free food, and different presentations that it's really worth for the advancement of our counties and our board. So for those who really believe that basically, like we got an email, which I thought was just really utterly ridiculous, that said we went over there. What was the word? Yes, it was a vacation. We were going for a vacation. I want you to know that we sit on chairs for 6 to 8 hours to be able to listen to lectures and basically how to improve our systems. So I thought it was outstanding that we are able to have these conferences and bring back information from throughout the United States.
And this month is Hispanic Heritage Month, and I had the pleasure of going to Mills Parole, where we honored some of the Naval Academy midshipmen for their work and service, and also the Hilltop Elementary dancers performed, and they were about the cutest things you've ever seen. So if you ever have a chance to see the Hilltop Elementary dancers, please do. And I also had the pleasure to go and read at Brockbridge Elementary School, and I have very little Spanish knowledge, and Ms. Gaston has said that he will help me with that, but the children were wonderful with me in reading, and so I learned and gained from it more than they did, I think. Dr. Arlotto and I had the pleasure of attending the Monarch Annapolis ribbon cutting, and it was wonderful as we kick off our newest school of choice. And at the end, they pulled back a thing and dropped monarch butterflies on us. And I think we should add that to board meetings. I think that we should be showered with something every time. So, and then last week I went to the Cat South open house. And the Cat South, if you've ever been to one of our cat centers, they're some of the most amazing places in this county. But I particularly enjoyed visiting the Marine Technology Lab. It's the only one in the state of Maryland that has that. And they are building a boat from scratch, and they have a giant wooden sailboat that they are also in the process of restoring. And it was so impressive to see what these students are doing. And so I believe they said that it's the only marine technology program east of the Mississippi. So it really is a unique and special place out there. They're doing great things, and I encourage everyone to visit any of the cat centers moving forward. So now on to item 2.07 is the Krask report.
Good evening, President Hummer, Dr. Arlotto, and other members of the board. My name is Connor Curran, and I'm a freshman at Old Mill High School, and I'm the Secretary of Education of Krask. This fall, AACPS has seen a number of students from many schools that chose to take a knee during patriotic exercises at sports events. Last weekend, the Baltimore Sun and the Capitol chose to report this as news when a handful of Glen Burnie football players took a knee during the anthem at their homecoming game. Krask has been discussing this prevalence of this gesture at sports events countywide, and it's our understanding that this practice has become much more common in schools over the past year, so common that it's really not news anymore. Officially, Krask is proud of how our schools and our communities respect student rights to express patriotism and protest injustice at the same time. Whether we support the take the knee gesture or not, you are teaching us a great lesson about freedom of expression is not dependent on universal acceptance. In other news, we'll have another outlet for expression next week as Dr. Arlotto's reconvenes the Superintendent's Teen Advisory. In the world of student leadership, the Teen Advisory is a bit like the Senate, with 2 kids chosen from the school's administration from each high school. The general consensus is that it's really a valuable program, and everyone deeply appreciates having access to the superintendent. Finally, on the behalf of Krask, I am honored to thank Ms. Burge for her service to AACPS. Before serving on the board, Ms. Burge served as the Krask president. So thank you for all you've done in service of our community. I'm honored to also thank one more person today. Without her, not only would I not be where I am today, but I know a lot of people wouldn't be where they are today either. She's empowered many of us to make Anne Arundel County a better place for all students. After one meeting, we were talking about officer elections, and she gave me one piece of advice. She said to me, "Run for what you want and not what you think you can get." From that day on, I've thought about that in different contexts in life, and it's made me a better person. It's the very reason why I'm standing here today. As she starts a new chapter in life, we would like to wish her the best of luck on her journey. And thank you, Ms. Boizon, for all the hard work and dedication you've put into creating a better tomorrow for the students of Anne Arundel County. You will leave a tremendous legacy that I assure you we will never forget. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to represent the students of Anne Arundel County.
Can't believe you guys let them do that. So mad at you right now.
Oh my God. Smile through it.
Okay. Okay, everybody looks this way. Hold it.
Item 2.08 is the CAC report, and there is no report tonight. Item 2.09 is the PTA report, and there is no report. Next is public comment. General information protocols for the meeting are posted on the sign by the doorway as you enter the room, so please make sure you read those if you've not done so already. Anyone wishing to speak on an item not on today's agenda may offer testimony during this public comment portion of the meeting. Speakers are allotted 3 minutes each and may not allocate their time to others. A tone will sound when time has expired. The board asks that comments remain civil and appropriate for the various audiences that may be watching or viewing this meeting. Student-specific and personnel matters are confidential and cannot be discussed in this forum. It is not the board's general practice to engage in question and answer session with speakers. For the record, please give your name before speaking. Handouts should be given to the board assistant. And Robert Silkworth, V.K. Holtzendorf, Mike Shea, and John Earl be our first batch.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, President Hummer, Vice President Gilliland, distinguished board members, Dr. Alada, and friends. I am here this evening as the chairperson of the High School Concerns Committee. First of all, however, I would like to take this opportunity to thank Teresa Burge for her 9 years of service at Anne Arundel County Schools. We are very grateful for her time and her effort as a volunteer to help our students, schools, and communities, and I give her a standing ovation. Secondly, I would like to extend a very warm welcome, including a North County welcome, to our new board member, Colin Reinhardt, the newest member of the board. Congratulations. Welcome. We thank you in advance for caring enough to help our students, schools, and communities. Ladies and gentlemen, our most recent meeting was October 11th. We discussed many items. I have chosen only two. First, the issue of testing and stress was discussed. Dr. Alada, your recent letter in local papers did address the issue. You made the point that through a collaborative process, changes have been made which will help eliminate stress for teachers and students. There were a few concerns that we have already shared with the ASI TAC advisory group. We will continue to evaluate after the first quarter is over to see if there are any additional things we could recommend which will allow our students to learn and grow with minimal stress. We thank you and your staff for listening and collaborating. Together we do make a difference, and we're a good team. Secondly, there seems to be in some of our schools a growing issue about the loss of planning time as a result of the need to cover classes. The stress level on the teacher who must cover is high, particularly when the teacher must plan for many different courses. This does disrupt the co-planning model which exists in many of our high schools today. But what is more important, it does have a negative impact on the instruction our students receive. In short, we do need some more substitutes. We ask that you consider this when the time comes to create and adopt the next budget. Teaching today is much different than it was in days gone by. However, subbing today is also much different and more demanding than it ever has been. My hat is off to each and every one of the folks that decide to become subs in the challenge schools that we have. Increased compensation would certainly be one step towards finding more substitutes. I recently talked with one of our subs who suggested that it would be advantageous to have some kind of a program which would allow subs to transition from sub to actual teacher. We thank you for listening about that. I usually end with kudos, and I have two this evening. We'd like to congratulate, I believe, South River teacher Josh Carroll, Anne Arundel County Teacher of the Year, and we certainly wish him the best of luck in the coming days when he goes to the state level. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to indicate that our North County Unified Tennis Team won the county championship yesterday. Congratulations to head coach Lisa Magnus, Marianne Schultz. Our coaches did a great job. Congratulations to all the members of the North County Unified Tennis Team. Best of luck in the States in November. And ladies and gentlemen, you'll get copies of the minutes in your email in the next couple of days.
I received a couple more cards on the same topic, and I'm going to call them up so they're all at the same time. So it will be John Earl, Mike Shea, V.K. Holtzendorf, Linda Nguyen, and Randy Williams.
Good evening, Board. My name is V.K. Holtzendorf. I live down in Shady Side. This is my second time to be before you, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today. As I told you, I spent my working years in corporate America, so school board, and I inherited grandchildren by marriage. I didn't have any children of my own, so it's all new to me. And so I realize now that I've got a 10-year-old grandson who just started in Shadyside Elementary, that it's important to take an active role. And it's important, I think, the public school system. I'm a product of the public school system and public college, and somehow held the flag against some pretty high-profile people that I worked with. I was probably the only one didn't graduate from MIT or Harvard or Caltech or Stanford in my group, and I was the leader of the group. So I was pretty proud of that. Little girl from West Tennessee did okay. But I went to my parent-teachers organization meeting a couple weeks ago at Shadyside Elementary to participate, and I was denied entry into the building. The principal came out and shut the door in our face and said we weren't allowed to participate. So something is wrong. I believe I have a lot to offer. I believe I'd like to be engaged, and I'd like you guys to do what you can to fix that problem. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Randy Williams, and I've met you before, and I appreciate that you take the time to listen. I'm a nurse. You are our educators and the leaders of our educators in our county, and I have a lot of health concerns about proposed cell tower at Shadyside Elementary School. And I do appreciate that last time I spoke about a mold problem that people had reported, and I heard through a construction worker that was being looked at, and I really appreciate that. Now, my issue is this. I get calls from the neighbors. My daughter has a headache. Somebody's throwing up. Somebody's got a nosebleed, and everybody calls me and asks me what they can do to take care of their kids. I have a lot of concerns. I've been reading a lot of literature on the effects of RF radiation on our children. And I realize that you have allowed Milestone to go in and do a proposal on the property to place the cell tower. And I just like to say that I deal with patients with autism, ADHD, anxiety and depression, children who are having surgery and are recovering. And I've also read recently that all 4 of those syndromes and diseases are accelerated and sometimes caused by DNA changes to young children based on that radiation exposure. So if I can persuade you in any way, I'm talking about the health of our children in Anne Arundel County, and we need to stop cell towers at schools, especially elementary schools. Please read the literature. There is a lot of science out there. Please don't ignore it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Williams.
Good evening. My name is Linda Nguyen, and I live 1 mile from Shadyside Elementary School from the proposed Milestone Cell Tower site. I have 2 children, one who will start kindergarten in Shadyside Elementary School next fall, and my youngest to start in 2020. 3 years ago, Piney Orchard Elementary School in Odenton was able to stop Milestone from building a cell tower in their community, and now Milestone is at our doorsteps. Why now Shadyside Elementary? What is the process for determining which kids and communities are chosen to be exposed to this continuous harmful radiation for the entire school day, 180 days a year, for 6 years of their developing lives? Where can the public review the criteria for fairness and equity in site selection in this process? There has been no true public process. The meeting in the community about the proposed cell tower was simply a meeting to check off a box. If it was truly a meeting to gather community opinions, you would have killed this proposal by now, or at least voted on it. Who is next on the list in the county? Is it going to be Hebron Harmon Elementary School in Hanover, where there are significantly more children of color and children from low-income backgrounds? Who will inform the students and parents and community members there and provide a balanced representation of the facts? Is it going to be Milestone, the cell tower company, who creates a special website for them too to share their facts? Or will those curious and concerned be met with silence and inaction from public officials across this county because those officials have received campaign contributions, sponsorships, and other favors from Milestone Communications? Dear members of this board, this issue is starting to present itself as an equity issue with the risk of disparate impact. Who is evaluating cell tower placement? Communities are not being provided accurate, up-to-date, balanced information. I am asking you to cease plans with Milestone at Shadyside Elementary School and cease further construction of these cell towers on public school land in Anne Arundel. Please take a note of what has already happened in Prince George's County. I also hope you continue to work with community members to figure out how to raise the revenue base for the public schools. If this is the heart of the issue, many of us are eager to share ideas with you and look forward to working with you to find alternative solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nguyen.
Mike Shea. Parents and grandparents, with the help of the principal, were selectively locked out of the first and only parent-teachers organization at Shadyside Elementary this term. The president, Theodora Quibble, pointed out at the door the parents and grandparents that she wished to be excluded from the PTO meeting. And the principal, Mr. Casey, acted as the gatekeeper and obliged by locking out about 15 civil persons of their choosing that were parents and grandparents of Shadyside Elementary School children. The PTO bylaws allow for any parent or person interested in the school and students to join the PTO, and these people had checks and their paperwork filled out. The lockout by the school administration of parents wishing to participate in their children's future needs to be remedied immediately before any more parental rights are violated and this issue gets taken up in another venue. I'm shocked and appalled by the school administration's participation in this discriminatory practice, and it needs to end with a public apology and a pledge that it will not happen again. Some of us here tonight are here to share with you the completion of the Maria Sasso Challenge and witness the fulfillment of her promise to give our community an up or down vote at the Board of Education here on the Shadyside cell tower proposal. John Earl will give you the first-hand description of the challenge and the offer of an up or down vote by Maria, and what John Earl has done to meet and exceed the challenge by Maria. We now expect the board to own up to their responsibility and the promise that Greg Stewart, senior manager, made at the public meeting that there would be a vote up or down in September on the proposal to place a cell tower next to the playground at Shadyside Elementary. We've been promised twice an up or down vote. Thank you, Eric, for attempting to make that happen before. We're looking for a vote. Accountability.
Thank you, Mr. Shea.
Hi, I'm John Earl. Can you hear me? Yes. I think it is now. Nice to see everyone again. So the last time I testified here at the school board meeting, I cited some calculations showing the RF readings at schools in our county were actually exceeding safety standards set in developed countries around the world. Maria Sasso called my calculations utterly ridiculous. So I did speak with Maria after the meeting to try and explain that my calculations were actually accurate and correct. And she admitted that she didn't really understand what my calculations were about, and RF radiation is sort of something you're not an expert in. So she challenged me to have a meeting of the facts with her physicist friend, Mr. Filippi, whom she trusts as an advisor. And she promised if my calculations proved to be correct, she would personally bring the tower issue back to the school board for a vote. And even though I have 6 kids and a full-time engineering job and a working farm, I took her offer seriously. I met in person for an hour and a half with Mr. Filippi, and we discussed my calculations and also our differing perspectives on RF safety. And he agreed my calculations were, in fact, 100% correct. He cited a 2002 report by Professor James Lynn of the University of Chicago that showed that existing RF exposure limits are adequate. So I showed him a report written 14 years later in 2016 by the same author, Professor James Lynn, where he states that in light of current research, we as a society need to err on the side of caution. Full recognition of a public health risk takes time, and that scientific knowledge is lacking in regard to long-term exposure. Again, Mr. Filippi concluded that all of my calculations were correct, that I was a conscientious person. I appreciated the compliment. And he acknowledged that I was very well informed on existing and current research. I hope Maria will stand by her word and promise to bring the Shadyside Elementary School cell tower proposal back to the board for an up or down vote by the members. I have met and exceeded her challenge. This is a large, controversial project, and we've now been promised a vote twice. Our community expects you all to go on the record with a vote. Personally, it's hard for me to believe that of 9 people sitting on a board that there must be 2 of you that would err on the side of caution. Whatever happened to the saying, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Earl. Francis Cruz, Gloria Vives Rodriguez, Terry Morris, and Wasung Chung. My apologies if I'm not pronouncing the names correctly.
Hello. Good evening. Well, my name is Francis Cruz. Thank you for listening. Recently, a letter sent from Transportation Division stated that some students would no longer have bus transportation following October 27, 2017. This is actually next week, next Friday. And I'm talking about Severna Park Middle School. It is our fear and concern for all of the kids that they will be hurt and or put in unnecessary danger as a result of this decision. The 1.5 mile requirement clearly do not take into consideration the unsafe condition for a student to walk. This creates an unsafe environment for the student who have to walk and cannot be driven by an adult to school. The nearest accessible route that is the student will use to walk to and from a school is the Jumpers Hole Road. This road does not have a sidewalk on either side, nor does it have clear visibility for the children or driver due to a small hill in this road. This road is extremely busy and during rush hour, imagine in the morning. This will cause additional safety concern from all of us. We request that the transportation be kept as it is currently. This should not cause any disruption as this already occurring, and this kept our children and your students safe. At least until the sidewalks are made. We know in the summer have a little meeting about creating sidewalks. I know it's a project in process. We just ask for you to talk to transportation, and maybe this decision could be on hold until that happen, because the nearest and faster way for our kids to go to school is that road. I understand they were not asked for them to use it, but then kids are kids. They're not always make the right decision or the smarter choices. So if they think they're running late, guess what is going to happen? They're going to use that short, faster way to go to the school. And something may happen. I just want to avoid that maybe in the future we are here with a sad news or sad report because we didn't took a smart decision in this point on time. The distance requirement is merely a number. It certainly does not reflect the danger to all children. The rest of the parents are here are going to talk about maybe the other route that you may going to have in your email with a new map and why this option is not a safe option as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I have an example here I just wanted to give you guys. If this is, who do I give it to? Madam President, Mr. Vice President, Dr. Arlotto, and board members. I have spoken today with Les Douglas, Supervisor of Transportation, about this matter, and he has instructed me that the path that will be given to the students to take is going to go through a connector between our community and the Trutridge community, between North Retford Drive and Retford Drive. The picture I'm showing you here, it's not the best, it's black and white, but it's still going to point out the point I want to make. There is no lighting there except for the houses that are nearby. It seems that the county is expecting the houses nearby to provide the lighting for this 250 to 300 foot distance between those two communities. The current regulation rules for the county parks and recs, which I'm assuming is who owns that land there and the sidewalk, says that no one is allowed to enter those times during the periods of sunset to sunrise. According to my phone, next Friday, Friday, November 3rd, sunrise will be at 7:36. This is over a 30-minute walk for my child to make it from my house to the middle school. That means that my child will have to break the law and trespass through county property to make it to school on time if we do not have bus transportation. I ask that the county please, or the board please, revisit this matter until the sidewalk is completed on Jumpers Hole Road. I have no problem with my child walking. It'll build character. I just don't want my child to do it in an unsafe manner or in an illegal manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morris.
Madam President, members of the board, good evening. I believe I'm the longest member in the neighborhood that's been there for quite some time, about 9 years. And I already put my son through middle school there, and he's high school now, he's off to college. Now my daughter is attending the middle school. I'd like to point out, several years ago, we addressed this once before. There was an attempt to cancel the bus route. Same concern my neighbors brought up was addressed, and they continued the bus route. I think it's very irresponsible to cancel the bus route in the middle of the school year, especially, weather's getting cold. I'm sure everybody felt it yesterday and this morning. Terry pointed out the wooded area is under continuous shade throughout the day. So if there was bad weather or any kind of storm, that path is not going to get cleared by anybody. And there's very significant risk to the kids to slip and fall. I think those are the key things I wanted to talk to you about. I really urge you to reconsider or revisit this with the transportation and why they're. I'd like to bring. I got another one. My wife received the email from school or somebody from the staff that they have attached, got a new software, and they calculated the new transportation route, and there was no new sidewalk built. I don't think the distance ever got longer or shorter in the distance from our house to school. None of the conditions have changed except for the new software, which kind of undermines the whole calculation before and decisions everybody made in the past. So I'd like to, for you guys to think about that and kind of put that into consideration before you make your final decision.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Gloria Vives Rodriguez. We also live in the Sabrina Park, As my neighbors mentioned, we received this letter on Monday for termination of the bus service effective on the 30th of October. The path that is being proposed for our kids to walk involves a passage that is near an isolated wooden area, which currently is lacking of proper lighting, as it's been mentioned before. The path that the kids now need to walk is more than 30 minutes. In some instances, it's going to be at least 40. I understood that the school system moved the schedule for 15 minutes to ensure that our kids have enough sleep, have a healthy sleep. Taking this bus away is going to force our kids to change their schedule because these kids are going to be on the need to start walking in the nighttime when it's dark and weather is going to change coming soon. And it's going to force them to start the day easily 30, 45 minutes what they spend this day. So I would like to urge you to please revisit this and have our kids' health and safety in mind, because after all, they are our future and we're supposed to be watching for them. And if the school took the step to move the whole schedule 15 minutes to ensure that our kids have the healthy sleep that they need to be productive, I'm begging you to please revisit this, because our kids are the ones that are going to be affected, not only on the health aspect of their sleep, also on the safety walking in the darkness, clear on areas that is not being managed by the county, because I spoke with one of the neighbors and he's the one that tried to clean that area on bad weather. So in good weather is more than 30 minutes walk for my area. There are other areas that's going to be more than that. So keeping bad weather in consideration, those kids are going to be on the road for 45 minutes or more. So just keeping their health and safety in mind, I'm begging you to please revisit this. And if we don't have sidewalks, at least find another way, but just protecting our health, the health and safety of our kids. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you all for taking your time, and we're certainly glad to work with you to try and provide some safe alternative routes if we can find them through the neighborhood, so that the board is aware, and I know you've received emails from a number of this group, the speakers here today and others about the concern, and it does start with the new software. As we begin to implement the new software, we are now finding one of the things that has to happen as you implement it is, or something that we've never had in the past, has been access to GIS mapping. That's not something we've had access to. With the new software, we now have gone in partnership with the county who has the maps, and we now can access the maps. What that gives us now is it gives us very accurate measurements of distances that we've not had in the past. And so what these families are speaking to is now that we're going as a cluster by cluster in setting these parameters. The board, as you well know, has policy and regulatory language that sets the distances for walking to school and to bus stops. And we have to enforce those, whatever it's a mile and a half, whatever those distances are, those are one of the things that we have to produce and support the board on. And so with the new accurate mapping, and we're going cluster by cluster, so you'll see more of this in more communities, I assure you. And this will bring us to a point where we will have to tell families, as we have in this case, send a letter home saying that you are actually living inside the walking boundary. Up to this point, we thought you were outside that walking boundary, and therefore you got a bus, and now you don't, and that's the reason the bus will be taken away. These are the efficiencies of going to a new software system. As we implement this, and I assure you, you will see more of this. The team then sends out, and let me also say, and I'm a novice at this, implementing the software, we are not taking every recommendation that the software throws out, right? The software will give us recommendations, and then we send people out from the transportation division to count the steps, to wheel it off, and to make sure that the bus routes or whatever is being recommended by the software is safe and appropriate for students. So we just don't take the software at face value. We then send people out to go out and check the routes, to check the bus stops, to check the distances. So in this case, as they're speaking to, these distances are now inside the walking area, and we'll ask those students to walk to school. We always produce suggested maps and suggested routes for students to walk safely to school. We do not want the students, as you've heard, we do not want the students, in this case, walking on Jumpers Hole Road. So we'll ask the parents in the community to help enforce that. We will talk to the students. The principal is prepared to talk to the students about walking on Jumpers Hole. We do not want it is a busy road. We do not want them walking on Jumpers Hole. We want them walking through the back of the neighborhood to where there's a crossing guard there, Jumpers Hole, to cross the street safely and get onto campus property. We'll do our best to work with the community. If it means that we need to make suggestions about sidewalks or lighting with the county. As you know, your budget builds in about $250,000 each year for us to work with Department of Public Works to add sidewalks, to add connectors, to add lighting. And as we work with our budget and we work with the county, we'll talk with them about some of those areas of concern as these issues come up.
Thank you, Dr. Arlotto.
Yes. Do you have some questions?
Are there? Yes. Ms. Downley. Mr. Reinhardt. Got to change.
All right, thank you. So when the mile and a half is kicked out from the software, is that a mile and a half driving distance? So as the bus would normally drive, say, using Jumpers Hole?
I don't know that it's a driving distance.
Okay.
It's not.
Okay, so to follow on when, because I recognize in one of the email responses that it was indeed this situation was indeed wheeled off and found to be under a mile and a half. Was that wheeling off done using the suggested route? It was. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Grannon.
Make sure I understood your explanation. You were saying that the software comes up with suggestions, but your administration doesn't mechanically apply those, but you all apply some discretion and try to determine whether there's a safe route that's available to the students, right? These other measures you're talking about, potential sidewalks or lighting change, how can all of that possibly be done in the next 12 days?
Okay.
So what's going to happen with these students?
We'll ask them to walk. We'll suggest a route, as we do with all of our walkers. Parents don't have to take us up, or the students have to take us up on that suggested route, but we'll do that. We don't believe, and we've sent our team out. We don't believe that it is unsafe for the students to follow the route that we have created.
Okay, but there are other. Hold on. There are other routes that have been suggested by the software that your team has determined are not appropriate for students. I guess my concern, and I confess, I'm sure I know a lot less about this than you, is that if there is this much community concern being expressed about this, these folks live there. These are their kids. They're probably more knowledgeable about that area. And if your team is exercising discretion as to which routes under 1.5 miles are suitable and are not, I think some kind of public consideration of frankly, your team's judgment as to whether that's the right decision to be made needs to happen, and that this change should not be made in the next 12 days. It just seems too soon.
Okay.
All right. Janet Norman, Lisa Van Buskirk, Stephen Harala, and Ken Bing and Tim Smith.
Good evening. Janet Norman, Annapolis High School parent of a senior and a freshman. As a parent of the senior, I've gotten to see up close the hard work of our principals, like the incredible Ms. Chittum, our high school counselors, and our teachers who spend countless overtime hours getting student recommendations for colleges completed. Poor Ms. Chittum did hers for my son, when she was home sick and finished things on a Saturday. They work incredible times for our kids. So please make sure they know that you appreciate all their hard work. I urge you to prioritize funding for these in-school positions, like what our teachers are doing, over positions in the central office. Your mandated reporting to the state of Maryland has shown an increase in non-teaching and central office staff positions relative to in-classroom positions. So please keep in mind what you're doing to the class sizes, the teacher workloads, and the low pay that's driving many of our teachers, some of our great teachers from Annapolis High, like our Spanish department chair, many other teachers, to Howard County, Montgomery County, and other jurisdictions. Annapolis High did not lose a single teacher to any other high school within Anne Arundel County. They all went out of county for better pay. And if you have any dispute with that, our principal did exit interviews with every single one of our teachers that left, and I welcome you to talk with her and find out details of theirs. The Annapolis Education Commission learned of significant cuts to federal Title I funds in our cluster elementary schools. We know you have the motto of elevating all students, eliminating all gaps, and we'd like to see more effort to bring safe, healthy, age-appropriate school hours to all students. You can do something about Mead Heights and Harmon Hebron Elementary very late starts at 9:40 a.m. for those elementary schools that begged you to change them. If you're told by the administration that they can't do anything, please remind them of the growth mindset you promote. I was just on the campus of the University of Maryland today, which reminded me of expertise offered by Dr. Hagani to help solve some of these transportation snafus that you're encountering. That you bought the software 2 years ago and you're rolling it out slowly and changing bus routes with 2 weeks notice is really unconscionable. When you went to and examined all the school hours for your schools, you told us that you couldn't change school hours without giving parents a year's notice, or you couldn't do changes of 2 to 3 changes of school hours within three years. Now you're giving people 10 days to suddenly say you have no bus system. Why would you do this in the middle of the year? I urge you to take the time to fix the transportation system and get the expertise from the University of Maryland that you sorely need. I'm still waiting on a call back from the transportation department from the 12th. It's now the 18th. And please put it back up on the website. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Norman.
Good evening, Board of Education. Dr. Olato. Lisa Van Buskirk will start school later in Anne Arundel County. I'll address the previous speakers with a question. If you're taking away their bus, what are you doing with it? Because there are a lot of buses that are now picking up earlier this year than they were the last 2 years. So will that extra bus that you're now taking back be going to any of those bus routes? Or are you going to not change horses midstream and let them keep their buses for now and then work out all the bugs? Back to my prepared comments. In early September, the Kerwin Commission member Kelman Hedelman wrote in the Baltimore Sun, "If I could get educators to adopt one resolution for the new school year, it would be innovate less execute more. He quoted Robert Slavin, an expert on school reform at Johns Hopkins University, who said it best: "The problem of education reform is not a lack of good ideas, but a lack of good ideas sensibly implemented." So various opinions exist as whether the 15-minute slide was sensibly implemented, but more importantly, will any further sensibly implemented school hour adjustments be made by this board? A year ago, the board acknowledged that the new 7:30 start time was still shy of goals. The board also acknowledged that the already late elementary and middle schools was not ideal. So it's well past time for this board to articulate, what do you think are ideal school hours? And use that transportation software that you're beginning to roll out, but more importantly, use the expert advice available to you. And speaking of that expert advice, I was sitting down to read my University of Maryland Alumni Terp magazine last week, trying to avoid all thoughts of start school later, and boom, page 18, Dr. Hagani there. I'm driving home from reserve duty on Monday, flipping the channels because I don't like the music. Switch to NPR, like maybe that's something interesting. Boom! There's a guy from Berkeley promoting sleep in his new book. So I can't avoid this issue even when I try to avoid this issue. So it's pervasive in mass media, so I'm sure you're inadvertently getting exposed to it too. So let me remind you of some of the things that, before this became such a topic in mainstream media, that this board experienced. 3 years ago this month, it was the Start Time Task Force reported out and recommended 4 options for altering school hours: not maintaining the status quo. Then a year later, they followed up with a few more options when you hosted the forum with Montgomery and Fairfax County to learn for lessons learned. And then the next night, there was a public session that was overwhelmingly about teacher pay issues. But I also encourage those who were not there for the forum to go back and watch the mother-daughter combination speaking and testifying. And that daughter, who was a freshman, became a sophomore at a private school, mostly because of the health effects of early start times. So there are many that don't come to testify of all age groups, but they're depending on you for healthy and school hours. So also in October, apparently October is a big month for start times. In 2012, Start School Later started its petition. Has like 4,000 signatures right now. We're going to be starting a new one, probably in the next week or so when I get it finalized, and I look forward to bringing that to you, asking again for healthy and safe school hours for all students.
Thank you, Ms. Van Buskirk.
Hello, my name is Ken Bing. Tim Smith is my husband. He's not here. I'm speaking on behalf of both of us. Good evening, Dr. Arlato, Madam President, and the board. I am coming to, sorry about my glasses. They broke. I sat on them back here, so I apologize. They're only one arm. I'm coming to you today to talk a little bit about ADHD and ADD. And I'd like to tell you a little story. It has nothing to do with anybody or anyone we know in our county, so if you'll bear with me. I was having dinner with my brother and his family at a local restaurant in Michigan one day when my 4-year-old nephew, Blake Bing, would begin to start shrieking, making a noise. It was startling and somewhat embarrassing as he did it again, and then a few minutes later, again. A very loud shriek. Well, we're used to it as a family. We didn't overreact. But this woman at an adjacent table turned to my sister-in-law and said, "You should get your child under control or don't come to the restaurant." Now that it was very hard to take, but somewhat understandable, as my nephew had what's called a hypothalamus hamartoma, which is a tumor on the hypothalamus and causes many seizures as well as grand mal seizures. It took a long time for us and go all the way to Australia to take care of that and help him with that situation. What I learned in that is face value really has very little to do with human beings. That when we get involved with a person that has a condition, ADHD, ADD, autism, whatever it is, we really have to come with a very humble setting and understanding that we're probably extremely ignorant in these areas, and we have to be open-eared and open-minded to understand what this child is going through. I have learned some valuable things in autism with some of the parents that I've had the privilege to be next to and serving in volunteer areas of the school, and I tell you, it's amazing what I have learned to understand what these conditions mean. What these conditions mean is helping to find an access point for these children because their intelligence is totally separate from this condition. They are two different things. And once we're able to find those access points, not just the parents, but the schools and the doctors and whoever else can be involved, it is amazing, and I know some of you have experienced this in some of the things that the school district has done. It is amazing to see what's going on there. Your department is doing I'm just saying this quickly, there's a fair on Monday from the special education department that's involving some other things. I'm encouraging parents that have children with ADHD and ADD to come forward and have an ability to speak to your representatives as well as others. This is a gap in our community. This is a gap in our school district, and we need to work on it, especially in our premium programs. And I really would like to see us start pushing this, and I'm hoping that parents show up on Monday night and help to push this issue, because we need to close this gap. And finally, I would like to say is that your music department at the music camp today, or this summer, demonstrated what a benchmark is in this area with children with conditions. I mean, absolutely a benchmark, and I'm proud to see that there are definitely a lot of people that are understanding that. So thank you for your time, and I appreciate this opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Bing. And I will echo what Mr. Bing said. The Special Education Citizens Advisory Council is sponsoring the Special Ed Resource Fair Monday night at Severna Park Middle School, and it is a fabulous resource for anyone that has children with any special needs, and I encourage you all to go out.
Good evening, President Hummer, Dr. Arlotto, and board members. My name is Steve Hackala. I am representing a new parent organization called Parents for Anne Arundel County School Music. I think we prefer to be called PAXM. It's a little bit easier to say. We had our first meeting on October 1st with a nice representation of parents. We have a number of things that we're attempting to do. 4 areas of focus, the first of which is honoring a Teacher of the Year, where teachers can be nominated by their peers, their students, or parents of those students. The program provides a vehicle for people to show teachers how we believe in their work. The next is advocacy. We'd like to highlight and promote our amazing music school program activities and school programs. We will also monitor school board discussions and keep parents informed. Third, we will provide help with instrument exchange, refurbishment, and coordination of ad hoc instrument activities like arranging instrument transportation for different concerts and the like. And promoting, this is a big one, but we may get to it. We like to bring concerts and other music events to the schools and make parents aware of music events in the community. We also had remarks from AACPS Coordinator of Music, David Kaufman, and in those remarks, he expressed a need for a 2.0 increase in full-time employment resources for elementary school music. And the reason for this is, I'm making a comparison here. In 2016, there were 8,300 elementary school students enrolled in music, and that's from a student body of 78,000, or 10.6% of the total population. In comparison now, in 2017, we had 10,443 elementary school students enrolled in music of 82,000 school total population of students, and that represents 12.7% of the total school population. So there is definitely a need. We're working with David Kaufman to see how we can help with issues that he would like to present, but we also have some items that in subsequent school organization meetings we will get more into, but at this point we're trying to present just another view, that one representing the school music programs and from parents who are very interested. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will say that I'm a member, and I was getting pictures tonight from the Marching Band Festival at Meade High School as my trombonist baritone was marching tonight to see. So I love to have an organization that's out there advocating and promoting our great music department. Thank you. All right.
Before you move on,
yes.
Can I just read public the answer to from Mr. Philippi? I think I passed it along, just for the matter of record.
Yeah, just read the
Yes,
statement.
That's all. To read the statement. I think the paper was passed down there. I'm just reading the statement since Mr. Earl basically made the statement that he had met with Mr. Philippi, and I received a little note from Mr. Philippi after he met with Mr. Earl, and it states, I have met with Mr. John Earl. He has collected a number of scientific studies which measured non-ionizing radiation from radio sources in the frequency range employed by mobile radio cell systems. I cannot refute their findings, but none seem to give irrefutable evidence that the radio emissions from cell towers present a hazard to nearby school, offices, etc., when limited to the latest U.S. maximum permissible emission limits. I am aware that Mr. Earl...
Please don't call out from the audience.
I am aware that Mr. Earl has an extreme dread of background radio emissions, and he takes extreme measures to reduce his exposure. However, I myself do not believe that cell tower emissions are harmful for those at a reasonable distance from the mounted antennas. Since I am an amateur radio operation, the only concern I would have is interference to amateur radio communications. This interference is produced by signals at a low level, and I do not believe these emissions pose a hazard to plant or animal health, including human health. E.J. Philippi, Spectrum Engineer, Advanced Consulting and Engineering Services in Washington, D.C. And I'll submit it for the record.
All right. Okay, we'll now move on to consent items. Items 4.01. Do I have a motion to move this from information to action?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. We now have an action item. Dr. Arlotto, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend that the Board of Education award contract for architectural engineering, design, and construction administration services for the gymnasium and program addition at Glen Burnie Park Elementary School to Smolin Emmer Ilkovich Architects in the total of $641,502.95.
So moved.
All right. Are there any board questions or comments? Is there any public comment? All those in favor? Motion passes 8-0. Item 5.01 is administrative personnel appointments. Dr. Arlotto, this is an action item. Dr. Arlotto, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend that the personnel listed on the attached sheet be promoted and or appointed.
So moved.
Are there any board questions or comments? All right, all those in favor? Motion passes 8-0. Item 5.02 is personnel. It's an action item. Dr. Arlotto, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend that the board approve the actions as stipulated on the attached sheets.
Okay.
Second.
Are there any board questions or comments? All those in favor? Motion passes 8-0. Item 5.03 is an information item, the 2018-2019 school year calendar, and we have a presentation.
Good evening. For the record, I'm Teresa Tudor, Senior Manager for School and Family Partnership, and I'm here tonight as the chairperson of the Calendar Committee. Mr. Mosier and I thought that we wanted to review some of the things that have brought us to where we are tonight. We wanted to first let you know some of the requirements of the 18-19 calendar. Schools start must start after Labor Day and end by June 15th, and that's per the governor's executive order. We must meet all terms of the negotiated agreements with the bargaining units. We must meet all requirements for testing, professional development, parent conferences, etc. In prior actions by the board, some of the things we did in the 2016-17 year were open schools on Rosh Hashanah and reduce semester breaks to 1 day. You had asked me at that time about the data and to bring back data to you about what it looked like for absences when we did open schools for Rosh Hashanah. I want to first thank all of the departments that have helped us. Student data, human resources, design and print, the communications office, the calendar committee, who I can tell you we have gone back and forth and back and forth. All of these people have been so helpful this year to us. In the 2016 calendar year for Rosh Hashanah, which was the first year that we had actually in a long time kept data for opening for Rosh Hashanah, we had 115 employees who asked for religious holidays out of 10,000 employees. For the 2017 school year, this year, we had 108 employees who asked for religious holidays out of 10,000 employees. So you can see that the employee's absence does not hamper our ability to deliver instruction. Of our students, we had in 2016, 96% of our students were present, so 4% were absent. And in 2017, 97% of our students were present, so 3% are absent. Pretty much in line with every other day. With some sicknesses, we might have more absences than that. But we asked HR and student data to pull several dates, not just that date, so we could do a comparison. It was pretty much in line with every other day, and we can certainly provide that data if you would like it. I think you did get some of it, as a matter of fact. In 2017-18, we shortened Easter break from 6 to 3 days. We reduced inclement weather days from 5 to 3 days. In other words, we cut all the fat. At this point, we are nicking the bone. We have done everything we can do to cut. I want to tell you that this is my 13th year that I have been the chairperson of the calendar committee. Never before have I not brought a calendar that I have had consensus. The calendar committee is made up of teachers, administrators, students, community members, central office staff. We have had robust discussions, but we always have been able to come to consensus. We were not able to come to consensus this year. We do have a large majority agreeing on the calendar that you have in front of you. By no means do I want to throw anyone under the bus saying that they disagree with this, because we are down to such hard decisions that it's very personal. So every group is going to have a personal stake in it, and I think that's just where we are. I know that many of you have seen calendars from other counties. Mr. Mosier and I have talked to our colleagues at MSDE. We have talked to colleagues at many of the other LEAs. You have seen what some of the LEAs have done. Some of them have as many as 5 different options out there. Some of them have 2. Some of them have options where they're saying, we're just going to go to the 17th. Some of them are saying, we're not building any snow days in. We feel very strongly that we're going to abide by the executive order. We're going to follow the law. We have asked about, can the third day, snow day be Easter Monday? We don't like that option, but we have asked, and MSDE has told us yes, that it could be. We have talked to our colleagues about some of the things that they are doing. They're looking to what we're doing too. They're saying, we don't know what we're doing. We're seeing what sticks. That's why we're throwing all of these other things out there. Everyone is in the same exact situation as we are. So this year, the calendar that you have before you, the 18-19 calendar, is the issues, the issues that we had to face this year, the additional ones. Yom Kippur falls on a school day. That didn't happen in the last year, so that was another day we had to find. Election day happens this year. That's another day we had to find. And then June 15th falls on a weekend. Believe me, the minute we found that out, I was on the phone to MSDE, assuming that we could go to Monday. And they said, no, that means you have to end on the 14th then. So that's another day we had to make up. So those were some of the things that really made our job so difficult this year. The options to account for those 3 additional days in the calendar that you show before you that we've submitted are cutting one of the parent-teacher conference days from 3 to 2. We're going to open for Yom Kippur. Or we could close. That's an option. We could close for Yom Kippur. These are the options. I'm going to give you the options that we considered. Excuse me. Parent-teacher conferences, Yom Kippur, the day before Thanksgiving, the day before Good Friday, MSEA Day, the 181st day for high school graduations where we allow teachers to go to the graduation, so we open an additional day. Reduce the number of inclement weather days. Those are the options we had to consider. Those are the only options we had to consider. We looked at all of them. None of them are options that we like. The options that we decided on and the options that we are presenting to you, and of course you will make this decision, it is your calendar, is to eliminate one of the parent-teacher conference days so that we would have one in the first semester and one in the second semester. We decided to open on MSEA Day and to let the delegates still go. Obviously, they would still be able to go. To reduce inclement weather days from 3 to 2, stipulating that the 3rd would be Easter Monday. As I said, none of these are options that we like, but these are the options that we have come up with. We're glad to take any questions.
Mr. Gilliland.
Thank you, Madam President. We've got 2 questions that I wanted to ask. The first is probably the easier question, and that is, I guess, for any religious holiday in which we're open, but I'll just speak about Rosh Hashanah in particular. What is the exam? I don't know that it's a policy per se, but what is the exam or testing regulation that our schools adhere to on religious holidays?
So it's noted on the calendar that you adopt. That exams, tests, quizzes, those types of things should not be given on religious holidays. And so we've had some issues with that, quite frankly. I had several discussions in the last week or so about the need to go back and reinforce that, frankly, with school-based staff. And we're having those discussions about how to do that. But students should not be penalized for missing school for a religious observance. And those are noted on your calendar.
Thank you. The second question then is in referencing MSEA Day, the conference. I don't know what attendance has been in the past, but certainly it's a large number of teachers not in schools, and the pool of substitutes that would be necessary to fill that void. Is that something that's achievable?
We don't have data on that because we've been closed for it. Just like before Rosh Hashanah, we didn't have data for that. We were closed. We do know that there are 90 delegates. That's how many delegates. We didn't until this year require information on exactly how many people attended. You didn't have to let us know that until this year. I don't have that information, but we can get that for you.
Thank you.
Ms. Korbelak.
Mr. Benford may have it.
I just have a question about the placement of a couple of days that are on Thursdays instead of Fridays. So October 18th, schools would be closed for students for parent-teacher conferences, but then the students would have to come back to school on Friday. Why not create a long weekend?
We did that one year. We proposed to do that one year, and we had an outcry from both parents and teachers saying, we're not going to go to a conference on Friday. If you do Friday, teachers want the long weekend and parents want the long weekend, so don't do that on Friday. So that's why we don't do it anymore. But it is certainly your calendar. If you'd like to move it to that, we're open to that. That's why we as a calendar committee didn't do it, because we have tried it before and there was just a big outcry that if you create a long weekend, then parents aren't going to conferences and teachers are going to call in sick. I don't believe that, because I think they're professionals are going to come to work, but that was the outcry when we did it before.
What about December 6th? That's a professional development day, so the students, it's a 2-hour early dismissal, so the students would not.
Oh, I thought you meant.
I mean, the parents would not need to be there for a conference. Why not do PD on Friday afternoon and let everybody start their weekend sooner? On Thursday the 6th. And move it to the 7th.
That's why I'm looking at the wrong one. That might be why. We can certainly look at moving those. We typically don't have professional development on Friday.
Right.
We just don't do it for the same reasons I just quoted. But if you would like to do that, that's something we could do.
And then my last,
Those are two different issues, right?
wait, one is a parent-teacher conference and the other
One's
is
a
professional
parent-teacher
development.
conference.
You're only asking for the second one.
I was asking if there was a reason for both of them to be on a Thursday instead of a Friday.
We don't typically do professional development on Friday afternoon. It's just not usually popular with our staff. That's.
But the request from Ms. Corblett then is to consider moving the one from
And
December 6th to December 7th, not the first
You can.
That's
Moving the professional development day to the 7th.
Right. If you'd like us to look at that, what Ms. Tudor is saying is that we traditionally have not done professional. That's a professional development day, half day for the students, and then a half day for professional development in the afternoon. We typically I would not recommend us having professional development on a Friday.
Friday afternoon. It's not a.
but
we are
certainly,
having.
if the board wishes,
yeah.
we certainly can look at that.
We can.
We are having an outcry of emails about being off on a Thursday and then having to come back on a Friday. It's like the opposite of what you're saying. Now people are looking at this
I
saying
know.
this doesn't make
We
any
had the
sense.
same outcry when we did it the other way, but we can certainly change it.
Right. No, I know we can't please everybody.
Just to be clear, the off on a Thursday is the October issue, not
Correct.
the December issue.
Right.
So we're
And
We can do that.
the other comment I have, or it's not a question, it's a comment. We're hearing that the spirit of the intent of June 15th was that they were looking at the calendar for 2017 and seeing that June 15th happened to be on the third Friday, and that there is a move afoot to try to sponsor legislation this coming General Assembly requesting that it be changed so that schools end on the third Friday, which was the spirit of the original intent of the law. So obviously we won't know if that's going to happen until April if we're lucky.
Well,
Correct.
the problem is we should have an 1819 calendar posted.
Right.
We thought there was going to be legislation last year, so we chose not to post one. What parents are telling me and staff members is, look, we know the issues. We've seen it on TV with all the counties. We've read it in the newspaper. We've read it on Facebook. We've read it on Twitter. We just want you to make a decision and post it so we can plan ahead. Right. We just want a decision made. That's because we waited a whole year waiting for legislation last year and none was made. So we have to kind of get something up there for them to start making plans for next year. I am very hopeful that this year there is going to be legislation, just like you're saying. We are really hopeful for that because I think we're hoping that is the intent, but right now it's not what the executive order says because that's why we called to verify. We were hoping we could get around that, but they said that absolutely we can't at this point.
And if nothing, the only thing that would really buy us this year is snow days, make up snow days.
And this is an issue that's going to change every year, right? So 2 years from now in 2020-21, Labor Day doesn't fall till the 7th of September.
Right.
So you can't begin classes until the 8th, and you still have to end on the 15th, right? So absent any movement, that's going to be a very difficult year for this board.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Mr. Reinhardt.
Thank you. Thank you for collecting all the data on absences for those last few years, both on teachers and students. For comparison purposes, I did think it was interesting to see the high number of sick outs that we saw on Fridays. So I think that your observation that putting professional development or teacher conferences on Friday is spot on, because those were instructional days that we had all those six on a Friday. That being said, with regards to MSEA Day, as a former teacher, I cherished having that day so that I could attend the Maryland Council of Teachers Mathematics Conference. I thought that was a valuable professional development experience, and I know that not only for mathematics teachers across the county and across the state, but several other subject areas also have their conferences on that day. Do we have any data from HR regarding how many teachers participate in those conferences?
I don't believe we do. No, I don't believe we do. I mean, we can try to get that, but I don't know that we have that yet. I do know, I have talked to people in professional development about some of the other conferences that are separate from MSEA. And I do know that it can be an issue until everyone else aligns, if in fact we start opening on that day. But I know for this next year, it certainly could be, because I'm sure those conferences are already in place.
Yes, they plan those several years out as being part of a planning committee. I can certainly speak to that. That being said, then the follow-on question is, well, where do you find that other day?
I know, and we looked at. I'm telling you, we had this conversation. We talked about the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, or doing that a 2-hour early dismissal. Many teachers responded to us, "You don't respect us then. We have families, we need to shop, we need to cook." But more than that, we know that Thanksgiving is the most traveled holiday of any holiday of the year. So if we put things in school, are they going to come to school that day? Are students going to come, or are teachers going to come? Right. So I think those 2 days are almost equal with the issues. That's why I'm saying we're not coming to you with a perfect solution. So that we did look at that Wednesday as well, and we talked about a 2-hour early dismissal. 2-hour early dismissal would work for those people who aren't going anywhere, but it's not going to work for the people that were going to travel anyway. They're still going to go. So we looked at, we've just cut spring break down to the bare minimum. And then if we have a bad snow year, we're not going to have the Monday. And then if we take the Wednesday now too, or the Thursday, we're really getting into.
Yeah. So looking at our list of options, just for the clarity of our audience, Good Friday, that's a state requirement that we're correct.
Yes.
So there's no say on that.
That's correct.
And the Monday following Easter is also a state requirement.
Right.
Correct.
We have to get a waiver for that, and that's why we actually went to them and asked if we could count it as a third snow day. And traditionally, they always do give the MSD, the superintendent of the state, the opportunity to give those waivers for snow days for inclement weather if we have bad winters.
So with regards,
keeping in mind, if I could interrupt just quickly,
Certainly.
because you had mentioned, thank you, a Good Friday. Certainly, Good Friday is on the books on law, so we can't change that. It's the Thursday, and so right now our spring break is Thursday, Friday, Monday. Correct. And one of the things that the committee talked about was eliminating the Thursday. So now spring break would be Friday and Monday, with the Easter weekend in between. So that's what that's referring to. And as was mentioned, Mrs. Tudor said that you all received an email containing some of the options from 4 or 5 other school systems, and you'll notice that some of those school systems have gone down to just 2 days for Thanksgiving, Thursday, Friday, and back to school on Monday. And some of those school systems have also cut out that Thursday before Good Friday, and their spring break is now just 2 days, Friday and Monday. So that's what that bullet point is referring to,
It
and
is
what the
the
calendar
Thursday,
committee
not the
was discussing.
Yes.
Thank you.
So as we're working through all these different options, if we're looking at, as let's say, Yom Kippur, no one likes that option. But are you anticipating that absences for Yom Kippur would be equivalent to Rosh Hashanah?
I would anticipate the same. I don't know that because we have never had it.
Expect higher. So if the option was to open on Yom Kippur, which agreed, none of these are good options.
Right.
If the option was to open on Yom Kippur, would students be penalized for their absence as it pertains to, say, perfect attendance recognition?
I can't answer that. There certainly it's an excused absence, but I can't answer about the perfect attendance. I don't know that.
Is that something that we would be able to look at as a board?
If you'd like to look at it, yes, but one of the difficulties, and this is something that's been long-standing, a number of the schools, not all, but a number of the schools have perfect attendance certificates at the end of the year. And more often than not, the Office of School Performance will field questions about this issue regarding a student's absence. Or would the board entertain parsing it out from a religious absence versus just an excused absence, right? These are some things that we've struggled with in the past to say, I see where you're headed, I think, that it is, that this would be a day the student shouldn't be penalized for missing because of, say, Rosh Hashanah. Absolutely, but that's an excused absence. It goes down the books as an excused absence, but it doesn't have an impact on perfect attendance because the student isn't physically there. If that's the board, if that direction the board wants to go, then we'd also have to parse out what about the student that just went on vacation and their family gave them an excused absence to be away on vacation. Should that play a role in perfect attendance? Those are some things that it's not for debate now. I understand that. Just letting you know, this is not a new subject. We've talked about it in my world in the Office of School Performance each and every year for the 12 years I've been part of this community. So it's not and it's not something that is, different schools are doing a little different things with their awards for perfect attendance, and so we don't have a hard and fast rule. If that's the route the board would like us to go, we certainly could start to explore it, but we would have to establish a hard and fast rule, you'd have to come up with a hard and fast rule, and then you'd have to back it up.
Okay, I certainly appreciate the challenges that we could have there. And a 13th year of discussions, it sounds like. All right, I have no further questions. Thank you.
Mr. Grannon.
Hi. Can we add language to the calendar so that the public is on notice of what days school is closed pursuant to state law? That way everyone is absolutely clear, because it doesn't say that. And I myself was just educated this week about certain holidays being pursuant to state law, and I think that as part of this whole process, and we want to be transparent to the public, it should say explicitly on the calendar each year which days school is closed pursuant to state law. So I'd like you all to...
We can do that.
To do that. I mean, it's the law. There's no reason we should...
We'll do that before it comes back to you for action.
And to what Mr. Reinhardt just said, and I appreciate Dr. Alato's consideration of kind of the implementation difficulties. To me, it's kind of... Just speaking for myself, I don't see any equivalence whatsoever between a parent saying we're going to go on vacation for a day and a parent saying you're not going to school today because it's one of our high holidays. Those, to me, are apples and oranges. So I think one very easy way to administer the suggestion that Mr. Reinhardt made, which I completely support, by the way, the idea that a child would not be eligible for perfect attendance because they are observing, their religion, just doesn't sit well with me. We would simply say for the dates that are chosen for religious observance days, just add a sentence that students who are absent due to religious observance on any of the following days remain eligible for perfect attendance recognition. And that would just go right on this calendar, and we are making the determination when this final calendar comes out which days do that. And that's part of the accountability of this process. And there are certain Christian holidays, for example, that don't make it onto the religious observance designation list, and school is not closed, and we're making the choice that those days don't rise to the same level as other days, and I think we have to make those choices and be accountable for them. Whatever happens with the final calendar, it seems to me that the proposed calendar has school closed on Yom Kippur, on this draft.
Correct.
When this all shakes out and we have our final vote, I would like to have complete clarity that the religious observance days are different than the days that schools are closed. So right now it says Rosh Hashanah, then it says open. None of the other days say that. Yom Kippur is listed as a religious observance day, but it's in the calendar as school being closed. So I guess what I'm saying, for clarity, the religious observance days should be the days that we are saying school is open, but there will be an excused absence for your child on those days. So for example,
Remove Rosh Hashanah or something.
So if Rosh Hashanah, for example, school is open, it should say that. It doesn't need to say open, it's just one of those days. If Yom Kippur school is closed, it wouldn't be on that list any longer, right? The same way Christmas is not on that list. And then just to what Ms. Korbelak said before, I mean, obviously this will be determined in a final vote by the board, but I see a difference between saying to families we're going to make parent-teacher conferences on Fridays, so you're basically giving them this choice of, hey, go on a 3-day weekend with your kids or come to the parent-teacher conference. I see that as different. If you all make the determination in your judgment that professional development days are, equally important not to have on Fridays, I'm fine deferring to that. But I just want to say I do not think student-teacher conferences or parent-teacher conferences should be on a Friday, creating this incentive for a 3-day weekend.
Thank you.
So for the parent-teacher conferences, so the one in the fall is scheduled for a Thursday, October 18th. But then the one in March is scheduled on Monday the 4th. Was the same consideration given that having it on a Monday would cause people to take a 3-day weekend rather than coming in for parent-teacher conferences?
I was looking to see what else started before that. What were we doing?
Doesn't look like anything.
No, I don't think there was anything. It's probably when we counted out the days. When you do this, you count backwards, you count forward. You're trying to get days, and remember, when we started this, we had another day in the middle that we've now removed, so we can adjust this day now. When we remove that day to make it work for the 3 days, we didn't adjust the other conference days. So we can tweak it a little bit more now than we did then. We were trying to get them all more evenly spread out. But that could be tweaked now to a Tuesday easily.
I'll say as a parent, I think
it makes more sense now to do that.
I would rather the conference day be on a Tuesday or a Wednesday rather than go to school on a Monday and then have off on Tuesday and go back on Wednesday, or go to school, have the day off Thursday and have to go back Friday. I'd rather have it.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to move that to Tuesday for sure.
To move those. How is it determined when fall sports practice begins? That's
Dr.
a question that has come
Arlotto
up.
is an expert at that.
Well, I'm yet to be an expert at anything, so glad I'm an expert at this. The state MPSSAA and the state calendar, the state board sets the date for when fall sports begin. There is currently, as you've seen in our calendar, as we are proposing, that the official start date to athletics for next school year would be the 8th. So the state is setting the start date as the 8th, which is on a Wednesday. The same held true at this time last year when this board was discussing the calendar for the current year we're in, and it was the will of the board at that time that we not start sports in the middle of the week, that we give our parents and students, families, that entire week, if they were away, to take advantage of the summer, and that we would start athletics on the Saturday. So that's the reason the calendar committee is now recommending, instead of starting on the 8th, starting on that Saturday, the 11th, based on what the discussion of the board was at this time last year about the calendar. But the official start date, if I'm not mistaken, is the 8th of August, set by the state. So there will be some other counties that will start on the 8th. It was the will of the board, similarly at this time last year, to start on that Saturday, and that's the reason we're recommending it. Let me also add that I think there is a move afoot that through the superintendents and the state board of possibly setting a different date, a more common date for the start of athletics based on the date of the first day of school, with Labor Day shifting on any given year, and the start date for athletics will be 20 days counting backwards. So whenever the first day of school is in the state after Labor Day, then count 20 days back, and that would be then the floating start date of athletics. That's just something that's being talked about around the state. We won't have an answer to that for many, many months, I'm sure. And so that's the reason it is proposed as it is on the calendar before you.
What are the 3 inclement weather days that we have? I know there's Easter Monday is the possible 3rd day. What are the other 2 days that are counted as our inclement weather days?
Last 2 days of the year.
Oh, the last.
Because if we didn't use them, we would take them off the end of the year, just like we do.
Oh, okay. Okay. But doesn't it also say January 31st could also be one as well? That's what it says here on the calendar.
January 31st is the semester break day.
And that could be a school day.
Because if there's inclement weather on, let's just say the 28th, right, and schools have to do exams, then teachers have a negotiated day, non-student day, in between the semesters.
We're just shifting everything.
We've had to do that before. We've had to do that.
It's
in
just a
previous
total
years.
shift.
Right.
Okay. To have on there. All right. So, as Mr. Granin brought up, I counted, and out of the 22 days that we will be closed, 16 of them are required by law that we cannot shift
Right.
in any way.
There's just not a lot of leadway here.
No, there's not at all. That doesn't leave us much space in there. But I think it would be good to put that on the calendar so that parents can see that many of these days, because we hear often that we're just letting kids out for no reason, and many of those days are days that we're required to be off. So, Mr. Reinhardt.
Thank you. So for clarity on the 31st, that day will only be used if an inclement weather day occurs during exams?
Right.
Only exams.
That's my understanding.
Okay. Thank you.
That's the way it has been in previous years.
Are there any other board questions at this time? So we do now have some public comment on the calendar.
Yeah, it's not a makeup.
Dana Scholheim, Richard Benfer. What? Oh. Dana Scholheim, Richard Benford, Janet Norman, and Lisa Rodvian.
I assume I can go first. All right. Good evening, members of the board. My name is Dana Scholheim. I'm a parent of a first grader at Folger Mackenzie Elementary in Severna Park. I am here tonight to petition you to reinstate Rosh Hashanah and continue to maintain Yom Kippur on the list of non-instructional days for the 2018-2019 school calendar and going forward. I understand that the new school year executive order forces districts to develop a school calendar within very tight parameters. The unfortunate side effect of this executive order is that it creates a climate where schools are forced to be less sensitive to the culturally and religiously diverse student bodies they serve. Currently, 6 counties, Baltimore, Montgomery, Carroll, Frederick, Harford, and Howard County Public Schools, are all considering options that allow for both Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur to remain non-instructional days while still complying with the new school year executive order. So far, none of these counties have voted to eliminate Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur from the school calendar. All these counties must operate under the same new executive order regarding school year starting and ending dates as AACPS. The result of the current calendar is that families like mine are forced to choose between observing days that are important to us or instructional time at school. I must choose between my faith and my daughter's education. I am not alone. Students, faculty, staff across the county are also put in a position where they must make the same painful choice every year. What was once part of AACPS school calendar for more than a decade is now lost. This year and last year, despite a letter from all the rabbis in the county to the board pleading that the school stay closed, Rosh Hashanah was made an instructional day. It's hard to explain to someone who isn't part of a cultural or religious minority what it's like to raise a child in an environment that is often unaccommodating. So I ask all of you to consider how you would feel if you had to choose between going to work or school or observing your holiday. It is unthinkable to make a student choose between Christmas in school or Easter in school. Both Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are just as important to my community as Christmas and Easter are to Christian communities. But there is room in the calendar to bring back Rosh Hashanah and maintain Yom Kippur as non-instructional days. In an email forward to each of you last week, I included proposed calendars from Montgomery, Howard, Carroll, and Baltimore County Public Schools, as well as some ideas of how to create room in our school calendar to accommodate for both of these important days. These including changing parent and teacher conferences days from non-instructional to half days and holding conferences in the afternoon and evening hours, for example, 1 to 7, as several counties currently do. These include Frederick, Montgomery, Howard, and Carroll County. I encourage the board to consider the potential calendars of our neighboring counties before casting your final vote. Please bring back Rosh Hashanah and maintain Yom Kippur as non-instructional days. I thank you for your time and consideration.
Good evening, President Hummer, Dr. Lotto, members of the board. I'm Richard Benford, President of the Teachers Association of Anne Arundel County. There is one aspect of our AACPS calendar that no other jurisdiction in the state has against them. To many of us, the 181st Student Day should be low-hanging fruit. The reasons include issues of labor relations, collective bargaining, and better stewardship of both educators' time and taxpayer dollars. The collective negotiated agreement shared between TAC and the board contains provisions for staff to voluntarily attend graduation ceremonies outside of their regular work hours in return for a half day of leave. That half day of leave is scheduled and can be used in advance of the ceremony, thereby giving administrators time to ensure sufficient staff volunteered. The contract violation contended in 2011, capping non-professional duties during the student day to 20 minutes, remains a legitimate contention. Those same non-professional duties, like monitoring behavior and keeping order in high school cafeterias and auditoriums that are limited, do not suddenly morph into professional activities at graduation. The wearing of gowns does not change the nature of the duties. It may be only a matter of time before a grievant or group of grievants attend to this contract matter. Educators of all job titles are under constant pressure of persistently increasing workload. The problem has been acknowledged by both bargaining teams, administrators at every level, and some appointed members of the board. Nonetheless, the great majority of AACPS teachers have lost a full day of paid work time that could have been used for planning, collaboration, student learning objectives, parent contacts, and any other myriad of other required work. Instead, there is another day to plan for and another day to teach in order to close for high school graduations. The imposition of the 181st Student Day has budget impact as well. In an era of budget cutting, rising class sizes, healthcare concessions, and stagnant salaries, our school system absorbs labor costs, fuel expenses, and more school bus mileage than necessary, and does so by its own choosing. It is the belief that of the TAC Association Representative Council, who took up this issue at their October Representative Assembly, that the 181st Student Day should be disbanded to help solve the lack of days in the calendar in which you are seeking. That day should become a self-directed work day for educators that would also allow the MSEA Day to remain in the calendar. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Benford.
You're welcome.
Good evening, Dr. Arlotto, President Hummer, and members of the board. My name is Lisa Rodvian. I just prepared my testimony on the fly, so I didn't have an opportunity to look up what the exact mission is for the members of the Board of Education, but I'm pretty sure it has something to do with working in the best interest of the children in this county. I urge you to be bold and brave and create a calendar that is in the best interest of the children of Anne Arundel County without regard to the governor's order. The governor issued this calendar change with questionable legal authority and without regard to the best interest of the children. You obviously have very difficult choices, which I feel you have no need to make. Make the choice that is in the best interest of children. Make the calendar that is right for children. Stand up to the governor. The governor basically had no interest in what is best for the children. He was operating in what's best for businesses that earn their revenue over the summer. And you have a different mission. You have a different charge. And so I urge you to take that charge and stand up to the governor and make a calendar that is the best for our community and, most importantly, our children. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rodvian.
Good evening, President Hummer, Dr. Arlotto, and members of the board. I'm Janet Norman. I'm really happy that you're having this discussion at an evening Board of Ed meeting. I was the only person commenting on the calendar last year at a daytime meeting. So I think this is something we need to bring to all of our parents. Last year, the draft calendar was released in a press release, and you voted to finalize it 2 days later. This year, it was just released to the parent community 2 days ago. I hope you will not be finalizing anything soon without significant input from your parents. And I think the clarity suggestion that Mr. Grannon made about stating on the draft calendar which days are required by the state would be very helpful. We know you are squeezed by these mandates, and it's not easy choices, but you need to have that conversation with your parent community, because this calendar affects every minute of our lives for the entire year. I would also urge you to please do not cut back on allowed days for inclement weather. As you travel up and down Riva Road, you will unfortunately see the accidents piling up for our Annapolis High School students. You're making decisions because of bus magnet pickups who pick up at 5:23 in the morning. So you're making your decisions whether to close school before 5 a.m. when a lot of road conditions are not made. I've been here at a Board of Ed meeting where an emergency room physician, laid into you regarding some of the decisions made, and we don't want that to happen. We want the safest possible roads for our 16 and 17-year-old drivers to be on.
Ms. Norman, keep it to the calendar.
That is the calendar.
But
that's inclement weather days is related to the calendar.
Start times is not the start time of the day is not the calendar that we're discussing on right.
Your decisions on inclement weather days are made at 5 o'clock in the morning. So that's why I'm asking you to have as many inclement weather days as possible for our young drivers. They're very important. So please consider bringing this back to your PTAs who have not seen any or been able to discuss this calendar yet. What about the idea of closing, of keeping school open on Martin Luther King Day because you have a semester break the 31st, still having it discussed and acknowledged within the school system. Bring lots of different options to the parents, and let's have a robust discussion about the calendar and what's best for everyone, but keeping in mind safety and inclement weather days that are very necessary. Thank you.
And just a point of information, Martin Luther King Day is one of the days that's required by law that
Is
we
that
be
state
closed.
law? Okay.
It is state law.
Okay, that would be very helpful to know all those.
Cindy Landis and Robin Schwartz.
My name is Cindy Landis, and I'm in the Severna Park cluster. Thank you for letting me speak. I did not plan or know that I could speak, so I am concerned about the talk of eliminating Yom Kippur and the previous elimination of Rosh Hashanah. I have a child at Severna Park High School, a child at Severna Park Middle School. Both of my children, there was a discussion earlier about relieving stress for children with testing. Talk about stress. Do you know what it's like to be a Jewish student in Severna Park and be excluded and set aside because they have to miss school? You're not supposed to have testing on that day. I had to call Severna Park Middle School this year because my son was told that he would have to stay after school to make up a PACER test in gym class that was being given on Rosh Hashanah. It is not acceptable. The way to eliminate this is to not have school. There has got to be other days. I believe what the other woman said about doing what's best for our children and fighting back to the governor and adding a couple more days on our calendar. I don't know how that affects the funding that the school gets, or I'm sure that has something to do with it. But there have been, my daughter came home the night of Yom Kippur, which is called Kol Nidre, with a ton of homework from high school. So we went to synagogue on Kol Nidre to celebrate our holiday and observe our holiday from 8 p.m. until 10:30 p.m. and then went back to synagogue the next morning from 10 a.m. until 1 p.m. and back again at 3 until 6 o'clock while we were fasting. So can you please tell me when my daughter was expected to do her boatload of homework that was given to her? It's just, it's not an acceptable way for school to be, for our children to be treated at school. And I urge you to reconsider having school on Yom Kippur and also on Rosh Hashanah. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Landis.
Hi, my name is Robin Schwartz. I'm also part of the Severna Park cluster. I have 3 children in the Anne Arundel County Public Schools, 1 at Shipley's Choice Elementary School and 2 at Severna Park Middle School. And I really just want to echo the comments from the previous speakers. You've talked about, and this is mostly in response to the conversation that was had earlier this evening, you've talked about how the policy is that children should not be penalized for taking these days off. You may not officially be penalizing them, but they are being penalized because they have tons of homework and makeup work to do for this day that they have missed. It may be an excused absence, but that really doesn't mean anything because they have so much to do. I know they're not supposed to have exams or tests or quizzes on these days. My daughter, who's in 8th grade, requested work ahead of time. She requested work the day after. It was not until she got her interim report home this year and she saw a grade of 0 in her language arts class that she found out after asking her teacher the next day that there had been a graded assessment in her classroom that day. It's not acceptable. And in reference to your comment earlier, Mr. Reinhardt, about cherishing your MSEA day, I cherish my high holidays, my religious observances. And I think it's wonderful that families have time to travel before and after their holidays, but when that is given precedent to our actual day of observance, I'm actually offended by that. And I want those extra days too. I know the calendar is very tight, and I'd like to have longer breaks with my family and children, but not at the cost of me losing the most holy days of our year. And my children have already been exposed to insensitivity, religious insensitivity from their classmates, and sadly also from administrators and teachers in their schools. And I just think there's a general lack of awareness. And I think by writing these holidays off the calendar altogether, we're adding to that issue. And so I'd really like you just to consider and think about it and not just dismiss it because it's not the majority holiday. This is a public school system in the United States of America. And we're all important and all religions should be recognized and cared for. So I just want to thank you for your time and hope you take consideration into these issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schwartz. Mr. Reinhardt.
Hi, thank you. Just wanted to say that the discussion we were having about all the different options on the school year was in no way meant to offend or alienate any of our students or families. Merely to illustrate the challenges we have in making a very difficult decision. We heard a few options here, one of which was perhaps doing a half day and then having the parent conferences in the afternoon. Are there any contractual obligations that prevent us from going into the evenings to host parent conferences?
Yes, we'd have to get our bargaining units, in particular teachers, to agree to extend their day. These were conversations that were had with Mr. Benfer and members of his team as we began to develop several years ago the concept of the parent-teacher conference. So yes, that's something we'd have to go to the bargaining table and talk to particularly union, the Teachers Association, about allowing teachers to stay beyond their contractual day, working a later day.
I see. And then another option was to go around the governor's order. What fiscal impacts or legislative impacts would we suffer as a school district if that were to happen?
So I have 2 immediate comments to that. First is I will not recommend to this board at any time that we don't follow the law, whatever the law is. So I will not make that recommendation to this board. This board can decide to dismiss my recommendation, as has happened in the past, but I will not, as a superintendent, make a recommendation that this board knowingly and willingly not follow the law. The second, to your point, Ms. Reinhardt, is I don't have any idea what could happen. I really don't, and I say that tongue-in-cheek. I don't know where the governor or the state board, what he would direct the state board to do with us. My guess is, and your colleague and I were having this sidebar, she was asking this very same question during this conversation, during the discussion earlier. I don't know exactly what would happen. My guess is that it would start with monetary fines and we would have money withheld from us. That's the biggest thing that the state has with us right now. As opposed to the superintendent going to jail, I don't know. But I think it has something, I think it would start with monies not being distributed to us to fund the programming from the state level, would be my guess. But I really don't know.
So it certainly seems, just by hearing comment and the discussions that we've had earlier, that what we're looking at, with the exception of perhaps that 181st day, that we're pretty much locked in at this point. That's the way it feels with all the challenges we have here, and even the challenges we would have in reinstating Rosh Hashanah because of those contractual obligations of extending the workday.
Absolutely, and this is the reason that we are bringing this to you as an information-only item earlier in the year. And we had talked, as your new president came on board, Mrs. Hummers, we meet, as you know, weekly, and this was one of the conversations we had, that we, as this administration, wanted to bring this because of this very conversation that we're having with the public and the very, very tight time constraints, right? We've got now bookends on our calendar that we've never had in the past. And so difficult decisions are going to be made by this board. We've got recommendations before you, but here's what is on the table. Here's how we can make up. We have 3 days that we need to make up. And as somebody said, there are other school systems that are making it work. Well, they're making it work because they're doing away with some of these things.
Mr. Bain.
Thank you once again to the board. I'm also impulsively responding because I didn't know this was on the calendar, so please accept my apologies for not being prepared. In listening, though, I will say, being a person that came from a different state, there's a school system called Rochester Hills, Michigan School District that has taken religious holidays and put them as a group, which then really honors all holidays, Christian, Muslim, Jewish, whatever they may be, and allows them those days off, kind of like you do at work, where those students are allowed, with no penalty of any type, to take those particular religious holidays off. Some of the complications here, I'm going to stand and let you know that I am not a Republican, but I agree with the governor on what he did. I see the problems. I see that this doesn't necessarily mean it works perfectly, but I will tell you that extra 2 weeks this summer made a big difference in our family, and my time with my family during whenever we can get it as our kids are kids is very valuable at the same time as their education. So I think that was important. I find the parent-teacher conferences to be very important. Maybe thinking out of the box, because I do know that high school parent-teacher conferences are very low attendance. Maybe there's a way to move that to a virtual ability, which maybe will free things up and allow, again, I'm speaking out of the box, but maybe there's something there that we can work with that doesn't put us in a traditional format of having to take all that time off. And I realize I'm outside of what happens in contracts and so forth, but I'm just trying to put some ideas out there, because I do agree that Christian holidays are very well state instituted or federally instituted, and that's to a disadvantage to the what would be considered the minority religions, and that's a problem. And if as a Christian, to me, none of those holidays should be recognized by the state. We as the religion should be the ones that decide when we take them off, and they should be honored by the institutions that we are established in. Michigan did do the same thing and mandated their 80 counties and I think 400 or 500 school districts to all abide by the same rule. I believe they abandoned it. So, I'm not taking a side here, but I'm hoping that there's a middle ground between the two that helps everyone find it, because I really felt that we were eating way too far into August, in my opinion. And I remember that one of the years there was only 9 weeks in the summer, only 9 weeks. And I thought, if we're going to do that, then why don't we just abandon the whole system and go with a quarter, 2 weeks off, a quarter, 2 weeks off, and eliminate summer totally, which is what some other states do as well. So there's a lot of ideas out there, maybe areas where I've heard that you guys, some of you are going to these associations. Maybe there's some other input from other states as well, or even Virginia, that can help us to find the best solution for our students. Thank you for your time.
All right. So this item will come up as an action item at the next meeting, and you can send your input for it. And I just want to add, for parent-teacher conferences, as a parent of 3 high schoolers, I really appreciate the days. And as I've signed up for my kids, the teacher conferences are, for almost every class I signed up for, were very well filled. The slots were filled. So I do think more of our parents are coming out for high school conferences now than they are. I had some challenges to get them all scheduled. And y'all feel sorry for me. I have 21 conferences tomorrow, starting at 7:30 in the morning. I'm not going to remember any of those teachers' names by the end of it. But anyway, so I have too many kids. That's what it is. I just have too many kids. So now we will move on to item 5.04, which is an information item, Maryland Open Meetings Act trainee designation. Do I have a motion to move this from information to action?
Second.
Okay. Did we vote to move it to action? Yes. Do I have to vote to move it?
It was an action item.
It was. Oh, I thought it was information item.
It was an action item.
Oh, it was already an action item. Sorry, my mistake. So, on September 20th, 2017, the board named then member Teresa Burge as the designee for the Maryland Open Meetings Act trainee designation. Ms. Burge's resignation from the board on October 8th necessitates that the board name at least one new designee.
I'd like to make a motion to designate Terry Gilliland as the board's Open Meeting Act designee.
Motion passes 8-0. Mr. Gilliland.
Thank you, Madam President. Just for the record, to state that I did participate in the virtual training that was offered by the University of Maryland in collaboration with the Maryland Attorney General's office. I did that last week, and I do have the certificate that's documented proof so that this board can engage in its closed sessions.
That's right. Right. Items 5.05 through 5.09 are information items, first reading for policy reviews. 5.05 is a policy revision, board membership code BAA.
Good evening, Jeanette, for the record, Jeanette Ortiz, Legislative and Policy Counsel. The first policy before you, well, before I even get into that, so the first 3 policies I will summarize are as a result of new law that has created, eventually will create a fully elected school board and also 1 student member. So as a result of that, we've had to revise some of our board policies, and some of the policies, so the law changed some things and not others. There's like delayed effective dates. And so I will go over those policies. I had to be a little strategic in how I drafted them to kind of show what's effective now and what will be effective next year. So the first policy is BAA, board membership. Policy BAA, board membership, is before you for first reading. This policy was last revised on August 18th, 2010. The updated policy identifies the current and the future composition of the board as a result of this new state law. So please note that the first version of this policy is current practice, and the second version reflects the revisions beginning December 3rd, 2018, when the composition of the board will change and start moving towards an elected school board. So if you look at the policy on the top there above the title, I indicated that subject to amendment effective December 3rd, 2018, and the amended version follows. This is similar to how they do it in state law when certain things, there are different effective dates. So the first revisions of the policy show what's being effective now, and then I restate the policy again with the full revisions that will go into effect December 3rd, 2018.
So we will be voting on the amended version, but it will not go into effect.
So you're voting on the amended version, so when we post the policy, what we'll do is, because I basically wrote the policy twice, the first version of the policy are revisions that need to happen now. Then the policy, I revised it again to fully revise it with the added revisions that will go into effect December 3rd, 2018. So when we talked about this in policy committee, the thought was that when we post it online, we'll have both versions. The first one will say like current, and then underneath it, it'll show the version that will go into effect December 3rd, 2018. The problem is that the law that went into effect June 1st of this year says that we have an elected school board. Well, we technically don't have an elected school board yet because the election isn't until 2018. And even then, we will not have a fully elected school board because it'll just be 4 districts at that time. And so I had to maneuver, kind of show what's current now and still compliant with certain pieces of the law that are accurate now, that are pertinent now. And then I also wanted to show what's going to happen beginning December 3rd, 2018. As I mentioned before, this happens oftentimes in state law, and so they'll just list both versions of the law, but with that, sort of notation stating, this is effective as of this date, and it's subject to amendment beginning on another date.
Mr. Gilliland.
Thank you. And I appreciate all of your work on this. I know a lot of things are moving targets right now, so thank you for everything you've done. My question was just broad as it relates to these next few policies, but because you've referenced state law and how the legislature sometimes enacts law, I'm just wondering, just to simplify some of this, if we just include now a sunset provision for the status quo that will eventually go away as we transition, and then that avoids us having to come back and edit a comma and a semicolon. We just save time.
Right, and that's sort of how I drafted it, but I didn't put sunset provision language, but I can certainly add that to the policy, and that will make it even clearer.
Thank you.
Okay, the second policy, BAB, Board Powers and Duties, is before you for first reading. This policy was last revised on August 18, 2010. The updated policy clarifies the powers and duties of the board in accordance with state law. And I failed to mention this for the previous policy. This policy and BAA will be posted on our website for 30 days for public comment. This one is different, so the various effective dates did not affect this policy. The change that was made was just to reference state law instead of specifically state education law, because now there are certain provisions that fall under the election law article. So I wanted to make sure we were accurate in how that policy was stated, because it's not just the education law article. So this one was simpler. The next policy, BB, Appointments, Qualifications, and Term of Office, is before you for first reading. This policy was last revised on January 7th, 2009. The updated policy outlines the requirements for the election, appointment, qualifications, and term of office of the members of the board as a result of new state law. Again, please note here, I did the same as BAA, where I listed the first version of the policy are revisions that are current now, and then the second version of the policy immediately following implements the rest of the items that will take place once we have that election and you have those new board members on December 3rd, 2018. And I can also add a sunset provision language there, which makes it even clearer that once December 3rd, 2018 hits, the first version disappears and you don't have to go back and vote on it. The policy will be posted on our website for 30 days for public comment, and I can answer any questions on this one.
So 5.05, 5.06, and 5.07 are all policies that are going to reflect the changes in the state law regarding the Board of Education. So are there any board questions or comments on these policies? Is there any public comment? Okay, as Jeanette said, they will be posted online for 30 days for public comment. 5.08 is board membership code. No, I'm sorry, wrong one, reading wrong thing. Board policy dissemination code BFA.
So policy BFA, board policy dissemination, is before you for first reading. This policy was last revised on January 6, 2016. The updated policy clarifies notification, dissemination, and accessibility of board policies and accompanying regulations to the public. You did look at this in January 2016, but in speaking with Mr. Mosier, we were just looking at sort of, being 2017 and the accessibility of things online. Do we really need to be mailing things out to folks when we can email them the information and have it on our website, just being a little bit more efficient? So we just clarified that language to be a little bit more in tune with current times and how we communicate and current accessibility of our policies and regulations. So this policy will also be on our website for 30 days for public comment, and I can answer any questions you may have.
Are there any board questions or comments? Is there any public comment? All right. 5.09 is student fundraising activities, code KE.
The Office of Student Performance is bringing policy KE, student fundraising activities, before you for first reading. This policy was last revised a very long time ago on December 6, 1989, so it needed to be revised to be more current with our practices. The updated policy establishes procedures and guidelines for fundraising by schools, student organizations, and parent organizations. Here, basically, what we did is explain the various process for these various organizations and really broke it down into sections so it was clear, where folks needed to locate their process and their responsibilities. And we added some language, on complying with our rules and regulations. The policy will be posted on our website for 30 days for public comment, and Dr. Kubik and I can answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Are there any board questions or comments? Are there any public comments? All right. I think that's it.
And if I may, I just wanted to share something that is not related to policy and regulation, but something I just thought the board should know. I wanted to share that AACPS was acknowledged at a recent meeting of the funding subcommittee of the 21st Century School Facilities Commission, or the NOT Commission, that is more commonly called. Mr. Bob Gorel, he's the executive director of the Public School Construction Program, presented before the subcommittee on education facility standards, and during his presentation he highlighted the work that AACPS has done on facility assessment and our funding process, and he indicated that it was a good standard and a model for other LEAs to emulate, and I just thought it'd be nice to share that positive feedback. Thank you. That's it. Thank you.
And now there's a lot of people that have been waiting patiently for a long time for item 6.01 to tell us about the wonderful new International Student and Family Welcome Center. So please come up, and thank y'all for being so patient. We're looking forward to hearing about it. Y'all. Yes, y'all.
Good evening, President Hummer, Vice President Gilliland, members of the board, and Dr. Orlando. I'm Carol Ann McCurdy, Director of Partnerships, Development, and Marketing. Anne Arundel County Public Schools is home to families who have lived in our county for generations, as well as families who have only recently arrived to the United States. The International Student and Family Welcome Center, known as the IWC, is the first place that many of our families arriving from other countries come to learn about our school system. In recent years, AACPS has experienced an increase in the number of international students registering to attend school. This school year is no exception, and with the recent natural disasters, in places like Mexico and the Caribbean, we are seeing families facing extraordinary circumstances relocate to our county. Our international families have traveled from all over the world, and our IWC was established to provide them with the support and information needed to help them enroll their students in school. This past spring, the International Welcome Center became a part of our School and Family Partnerships Office. Teresa Tudor, Senior Manager for School and Family Partnerships, along with our colleagues Gracie Williams and Gaston Gomez, will share information about the center and how it serves our students and families.
The International Student and Family Welcome Center, or the IWC for short, has gone through a major transition this year. It started with a name change to better reflect the purpose as well as the spirit of the office. This is the place our international students and their families encounter their first experience with Anne Arundel County Public Schools. We want our students and their family members to feel welcome and leave the IWC with all the information they will need to have a successful start in their new school and country. The IWC offices were moved from 3 portable classrooms behind Annapolis Middle School to a suite of offices at the Phoenix Academy. The new location brings all the staff together in one place and allows families to get all the services they need for their children, from testing to school counseling, and the opportunity to meet with a social worker, PPW, or family involvement specialist based on their particular needs or concerns. This move has not only provided a much more welcome and comfortable location for our families, but it has allowed staff to coordinate their efforts and streamline their processes to be as efficient and effective as possible. We wanted you to see the IWC in action, and we have a short video that captures some of the work that takes place there. All international families who are entering their students in a school for the first time in the United States will visit our International Student and Family Welcome Center.
I went to the International Welcome Center about 10 years ago when I decided to move from Puerto Rico with my children who were in 2nd, 5th, and 7th grade. I called the school to enroll them thinking that was the first step, and they referred me to the international office. I was a little confused as to why I would need to take my kids to an international office, but all apprehensions changed as soon as I got there.
Once they arrive, they are greeted by a staff member who can speak to them in their native language and review all the documents. While the parents or guardians are filling out the necessary documents, students are tested to ensure they are placed in the most appropriate grades and courses.
They took my kids, they tested them, placed them in academically appropriate classes, and they started school. It was really a wow experience that first time.
All families have the opportunity to meet with a family involvement specialist and view a video in their native language that introduces them to Anne Arundel County Public Schools and what expectations there are for the families to be involved in their students' education. This also allows the families to ask any questions they may have at that time. The school counselor at the International Welcome Center will review high school students' transcripts to ensure that the students receive credit for the courses they have taken in their home country and make sure they are placed in appropriate classes at their new school. If necessary, our pupil personnel worker will visit homes to verify residence, and this is done right away to make sure our students are enrolled in classes as soon as possible. The Newcomer Center at Annapolis High School is for high school students with interrupted education. The social worker and school counselor from the International Welcome Center conduct small group sessions with the students to ensure they are getting social and emotional support to accompany their customized academic schedule. The International Welcome Center also works very closely with Joe Hudson, the Hispanic liaison from the Annapolis Police Department.
It's important that the Annapolis Police partner with the Anne Arundel County Schools because of the demographics that we work in, that is the Latino population. A lot of them don't understand the culture here in the United States or the school system, and so we combine our forces together to teach them what's culturally acceptable here in the United States and try to further their education and their family life as well.
The bilingual facilitators work with families when they get to the school to ensure a smooth enrollment process and to give the families that personal connection that is vital to a successful transition from one country to another.
La experiencia con el enlace bilingüe fue muy bonita porque ella me trató muy bien y me dijo que no me preocupara de nada porque todo iba a cambiar si yo ponía mi parte.
The main purpose of the International Student and Family Welcome Center was really to make sure when families come in from a different country, they feel very welcome in Anne Arundel County Public Schools and they get all the services they need in one place. We want them to feel at home the moment they walk through the door.
The second time, fast forward maybe 2 years ago, where my oldest daughter needed to put her daughters in school. Again, they were also moving from Puerto Rico, so I was like, I'm good at this. I know it's going to go on. But yet again, they wowed me again. This time, the social services and the office came, Miss Costa, I believe her name is, Isla? Caribe. Okay, so fast forward a couple years, Miss Caribe came to enroll my kids, but she did that at our house. So she came and we had the intention of enrolling my granddaughter in 2nd grade, and I just mentioned to her that my youngest granddaughter wasn't speaking. So through the international office, my youngest granddaughter was able to even get speech therapy classes, integrated in a little social group that Gaston leads in the libraries, and she made little friends and started talking, and she went straight into preschool. She's a totally different girl. And it all started at that international office.
Me siento feliz. I feel very happy and thankful to God because I never expected in this country that my daughters would have the opportunity that they have.
Good evening. My name is Graciela Williams, and I am the social worker at the International Student and Family Welcome Center. My colleagues and I work closely together to ensure that families who enter our office are welcomed and are able to quickly enroll their incoming student within our school district. When families enter our office, they are immediately greeted by Jessica Angulo, our clerk, who is a familiar voice to many families. Many times, she is the point of contact when families call our office to set up an initial registration appointment. She ensures that families are able to get a registration appointment within 24 hours of calling our office, that families are aware of our county's registration requirements, and that they bring the necessary documents so that our 2 registrars are able to complete the registration as necessary. Our registrars, Yvette Poole and Brita Vasquez, are well-versed in assisting families who enroll at the elementary, middle, and high school level. They make it a point to become familiar with each family that they serve in order to provide a thorough registration for each family that enters our office. This is done by having complete knowledge of each individual school policies, such as uniforms, lunch schedules, and start and finish times. Families enrolling high school students also meet individually with our counselor, Taina Compañet, who conducts transcript evaluations for our international high school students to ensure that students are being placed in appropriate grade levels and that they receive full credit for courses conducted outside of the United States. On our staff, we also have a family involvement specialist, Monica Lopez, who works closely with school educators and bilingual facilitators to ensure that parents are feeling welcomed and supported at each individual school. She is actively involved in creating and maintaining parent outreach programs around our county. We also have a pupil personnel worker on our team, Donna Caribe, who works closely with families who fall under certain categories when enrolling, such as hardships, homelessness, and other special circumstances. She ensures that they receive the necessary support through our office and that it continues when they complete the enrollment at their home school. Finally, in my role as the social worker, I have the opportunity to assist international students and families as they transition into their home schools after initially registering in our office and who have expressed a need or concern that should be addressed at the school level. As we continue to work with the many newcomer and international students and their families, we are encouraged by the amount of support and engagement from schools and the board as we can continue to offer these students and their families the necessary tools to equip them to be successful within our school system.
Good evening. I am Gaston Gomez, ELL Family and Community Outreach Program Manager. I manage all 46 ELL parent programs offered in our schools throughout the school year. In addition, I have the honor to lead a team of bilingual facilitators composed of 18 positions. This hardworking team speaks 11 languages and serves as a communication bridge between our 127 schools and our families. Our team of bilingual facilitators pride themselves on providing outstanding support and services to our schools and our families. Our team works hand in hand with the staff of the International Student and Family Welcome Center. Before family leave the center, the IWC personnel notifies a bilingual facilitator who supports the school where the student will be enrolled. Our team contacts the family to set up an enrollment appointment to ensure the family has someone who speaks their language stays with them during the entire process. This is an excellent opportunity for our team to get to know the new international student and their families and to make sure the family feels supported during the entire school year. Our team is always available, we are always available, to answer questions, discuss challenges, and assist the family as they acclimate to a new school and to a new country. Some of the day-to-day duties include community outreach, providing access and equity for our international students and families, explaining the school programs, policies, and procedures, providing guidance with emergency situations including homelessness, health crisis, and other community resources, translating school-based documents, and interpreting at parent-teacher conferences as needed. Also, we provide professional development to our educators and school staff in cultural sensitivity, working with international families, and how to request and utilize interpretation and translation services. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you tonight.
So it's important to note that the services provided by the IWC and our ELL family and community outreach efforts are really only part of the story. The education and support provided to our students and their families continues at their schools through the ESOL programs under curriculum and instruction and with student support services. Our IWC staff and bilingual facilitators communicate and collaborate regularly with our colleagues from around the school system to ensure that our international students and families are able to access the resources they need and are aware of their educational opportunities. Thank you. We'll be happy to respond to your questions.
Mr. Gilliland.
Thank you, Madam President. I know it's getting late. I pushed my button, and Mrs. Nally said, "I'm going to kill you." And I said, "You've already replaced Mrs. Burge." So I said that out loud. I just want to first say thank you. Muchas gracias. Thank you for this. Senora Sasso has been teaching me a little bit. So. My question, again, I think this is phenomenal. One is a request, if I can, both to President Hummer and Dr. Arlotto, and that is that I think this in a summary format ought to be included in our legislative breakfast, because I think, we're getting ready to enter into good old budget season, and, I think our friends in the delegation as well as the county level ought to know more about this and the significance and the value and so forth. So that was that point. My second point is a question specifically about mobile access, if there's some sort of mobile outreach or whether that occurs now or potentially in the future. And my reason for it is a selfish question in particular for North County. For people who may not be able to get to Annapolis to visit the IWC because of the hardships, and certainly you've mentioned that and referenced it in the video appropriately, that we're doing a lot to help people who are in situations where transportation may be an issue and so forth. So are all of these resources available to someone, say, in Brooklyn Park?
If transportation is an issue and the family cannot come to Annapolis, we do go to the location where they are. We will go. We're certainly mobile. We're also trying to automate a lot of our practices. So we're looking at some of Adobe Connect and different things where we can actually do things remotely as well. We're looking at lots of different ways to improve our services.
As Ms. Tudor shared earlier, one of the things we want to do is really provide a welcoming environment. And so our goal is, if an international family walks into a school in the North County area, within a few minutes, somebody is on a computer screen or on a phone talking to them in their native language and sharing with them, the experience they're about to have.
Mr. Grannon.
Thank you. I share Mr. Gilliland's sentiments. It's wonderful work that you all are doing. Very, very nice presentation. So thank you for that. One question, is participation mandatory or is it optional?
No, if you are first time coming into a school in the United States and have not come through a WIDA state, you must come to the International Center. And the importance of that is the testing. We need to have people who test the students to place them. School staff are not necessarily trained in that, but our staff at the International Welcome Center are trained in testing the students. They're testing for their language ability. They're testing to see where they're going to be placed if they need ESOL services. And then, of course, at the high school level, it's really important because they're assessing what classes they've taken in other countries, how that translates to our classes in this county, and then where they need to be placed. So they must come through us. If you have been to another state and you were there for a while, or you were another county, then you probably can just go to the school. There are some exceptions to that, but typically these are first-time parents here.
Okay. And the thing that made me think of this was the testimonial at the start of the video. I'm sure her experience was completely positive, but are there any sensitivities at all to requiring people from Puerto Rico, which is part of the United States, to go through? That has been
such a big conversation this week.
An international.
We actually have met with Student Services, with our new Director of Student Services, with our personnel people this week, because the International Welcome Center has seen a lot more families within the last couple of weeks, because you have to understand the families have not been able to get out, or they have been in shelters, places where they haven't been able to get out. So they're just leaving the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico now. So they're just coming in the last week, and more are going to be here. So right now we're dealing with that. So some people are under this thing, well, they're a territory, shouldn't they go to the schools? But many times their language is still Spanish that they're speaking at home. So we still need to assess their language ability and where they need to be placed in ESOL. Plus, these families are coming with many, many needs. So the very best place for them to go is the International Welcome Center, where we're going to wrap around services for them and say, this is what we can provide for you. Let us connect you to this. We know you have no school supplies, but hey, guess what? We have them all right here. Here's a backpack with all the school supplies you need. Here is where you need this information. Let us make this appointment for you. So they're really holding the family's hand. And so we're not doing this to make it harder for the family. We're really doing this to provide them all the services they need. And we had a family from Puerto Rico this week, and one of the family members really did not want to come. But I think once he was there, he realized that they were his nieces, got so many more services, that he was appreciative that they had actually gone to the center.
Yeah, maybe this goes without saying to such caring and professional people like you, but maybe even just that sentence, we understand you're U.S. citizens, but this is a resource that we offer to all people that are moving from, outside of the 50 U.S. states, something like that. So
and what Student Services has done is just to back up this, they've sent some emails out, again, to registrars, school counselors, and PPWs, just reiterating that it's always been that Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands have come through the International Welcome Center. But because we know we're seeing a lot of people, we're going to see even more, just reminding them that we are going through the International Welcome Center and why. So those emails I've been copied on in the last several days. And I think we just want to all be on the same page so that we're speaking the same language for our families.
Mr. Reinhardt.
Thank you. And again, I just want to commend you for the incredibly valuable and valiant work that your office is doing on behalf of our international students, and especially the caring that you're showing for many students who are coming from very challenging situations, whether that's violence or their disrupted education. It's just wonderful that you're able to do that with such a small staff. To see that you've already helped 800 children this year with this many folks, plus 800 families. I apologize.
More children.
Yes, more kids. And the hundreds of additional families that have already come through the office that you offer continuing services for. It is incredible that you're doing it. And 18 bilingual facilitators through that many schools, what's the typical load for one of those bilingual facilitators?
Some of them, they have multiple schools, between 6 to 12, 14 schools. Some are assigned to only one school if the population is large, such as Annapolis High School, Glen Burnie High School, and some other schools that are ELL, with high enrollments.
But they could have as many as 400 families that they're working with.
Mm-hmm.
Some more than that, 500.
One facilitator?
Yes. Sure. Because we only have 18 positions.
So then I need to echo what Mr. Gilliland said for our legislative breakfast coming up, because that's untenable to be able to work with that many families and to hear that we're going to have that many more.
I will tell you, the bilingual facilitators have been part of our office for years now. The IWC is a relatively new addition last spring, and I can tell you they are hardworking people. We are thrilled to have them part of our team. They just have come right on as members of the team. They have been very open to lots of suggestions because we did come on with changing lots of structures and putting new structures in place, and they have accepted the changes because they know that it was put in to make them more efficient, and they have really been very accepting of it, very positive. We can't say enough about their work ethic. Ms. Caribe, I might be on the phone with her at 8:30 at night, at 10 o'clock at night. She might be leaving a family's home at that time. She might be at a family's home at 5:30 in the morning, because to do a residency check, before we can actually get them into a school, because you may not have something from a landlord. So that could be, that means you have to go through the residence twice. So if they're working families and all, she has to go before they go to work. So she might be there at 5:30 in the morning. She might be there again at 8 o'clock at that same day. And, just never says a word about it, is always there, is always then asking what else she can do for them. Just really, really the whole team. I can't say enough about it.
So just to understand, so you're saying that Ms. Caribe handles all of the home visits for
Yes. For our office, yes.
Okay.
And in the summer, that just means she's just working nonstop.
I just want to echo what everybody says. It's just amazing work, wonderful. And I've said this before, and I'm going to put it out there. Dr. Arlotto, I want to schedule a visit to go. I'd love to have a visit where some board members can go and see them in action and check it out.
They really love people to come visit them.
I'm sure they'd love to have it. So we're going to get that on the calendar so we can come out and see what you're doing.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. And thank you for staying for our late night tonight. All right. Item 6.02 is a review item, fiscal year 2017 operating budget closeout. I do have a question on the page of the estimated fund balance summary proprietary fund. It says the ending fund balance for FY 2017 is $8,753,347, but at the top of the next column, the revised budget for FY 2018 says $951,128. Should that be? Is that correct?
For the record, Chief Operating Officer Alex Sheknovich, it is correctly presented on this sheet.
Okay. So our ending fund balance did not carry over for the FY18 starting
For that
beginning
adjustment
budget?
to be made, it will require an action of this board and an action of the county council. So we'll normally true that up as we go through our second and fourth quarter
Okay.
transfer processes.
Okay, so we just haven't made that transfer at this time. Okay, thank you. All right. Are there any other board questions or comments? Okay, we have one public comment. Teresa Sutherland.
Good evening. I'm Teresa Sutherland, and now that your audited financial statements have been released, we can see how the actual results compare to the projections put forth by the superintendent. In the general fund, you closed out fiscal year 2017 with $28 million of fund balance that is not restricted, committed, encumbered, or otherwise not spendable. $28 million is more than twice the $13 million Dr. Arlotto projected in the spring. And while the superintendent conservatively estimates the available fund balance every year, underestimating by $15 million may be a new record. Of this $28 million that is not restricted, committed, encumbered, or otherwise not spendable, $13 million is programmed for use in next year's budget. And in addition, the superintendent has assigned $7 million to the health insurance fund and $5 million for information technology. $3 million remains unassigned, which by its very definition means neither the superintendent nor the board has an intended use for it. I ask you to consider whether the $3 million of unassigned fund balance or the $5 million Dr. Arlotto intends to spend on information technology, or even some of the $13 million programmed this year that you likely won't use, might be put to better use addressing the late dismissing elementary schools that Dr. Arlotto has told you he can do nothing about. Surely with a $28 million surplus, you could do something. Moving to the health insurance fund. Last fall, your staff projected a $9 million deficit, but the actual results show an almost $9 million surplus, the number that Ms. Hummer was just referring to. That's an $18 million swing in 9 months. So how did you end up with $18 million more than your staff projected this time last year? Well, part of it is the $5 million you got from the county in the fourth quarter. But the other $13 million is because your staff overestimated claims by $6 million and underestimated other revenues by $7 million. Given the dire deficit projections for that fund, to have $13 million more than you thought you would, excluding the $5 million from the county, is astonishing. And it's even more astonishing when you consider that you didn't contribute the full amount you budgeted for employer contributions. In the fourth quarter transfer documents, you budgeted $144.2 million of employer contributions, but you actually contributed only $140.8 million, which is $3.4 million less. In a fund that's facing a $9 million deficit this time last year, why would you contribute less than the full amount budgeted when you had both the cash and the appropriation authority in the general fund to do so? That, members of the board, is simply astounding to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sutherland. No. If you have a question for Mr. Sheknovich about any of those items, you can ask Mr. Sheknovich.
Okay, well, now that she's made her presentation, we haven't gone through any of the data, right? This isn't data that we created. This is data that Ms. Sutherland created, and we're glad to look through it. And then I'm glad to try and answer your questions. Okay. Right? I can't answer them on the spot. We haven't. I don't know what all of this means and where it all came from, but we're glad to go through it and then try and answer your questions or questions of the board
at the next meeting.
At the next meeting. Okay.
It's kind of all right. Item 6.03 is review item, monthly financial status report. Are there any board questions or comments? All right. Are there any public comments? All right. That was an easy one. All right. Item 6.04 is a review item, construction status report. What? They wanted to thought you had retired, but we still got you for a little bit longer. Is this your last meeting, Mr. Talbert?
Yes, last meeting.
We're sad.
I appreciate the length, just like you get on
well, we wanted you. We wanted you to know what you are missing, and so we appreciate you staying till the very end. So. Are there any questions or comments about the construction status report? Okay. Are there any public comments or questions? All right. Thank you very much. That was very easy for you, Mr. Talbot. We let you off easy tonight. All right. Item 6.0. Oh, wait, no. Item 6.05 is award of contracts. Are there any board questions or comments? Are there any public questions or comments? All right, that's it. Item 6.06 is an information item, a board position regarding the maglev project. And Mr. Reinhardt.
Thank you, Madam President. So I've requested that we add this item to the agenda specifically because it's our charge to keep our students safe and healthy while in the care of ACPS. The inconsistent explanations from SC Maglev officials regarding impacts to our school communities, as well as the potential need to relocate schools depending on the methods used for tunnel construction, creates unnecessary levels of uncertainty in our long-term capital improvement plan. Taking a board position will send a strong message to SC Maglev, our elected and appointed officials, and most importantly, the community we serve, that this board will not tolerate our students, families, and staff being put at risk in the exchange for little or no improvement to the quality of life for Anne Arundel County residents. We have a draft position statement, if I may read that.
And just to clarify, several of us worked on this draft. It's not just Mr. Reinhardt.
All right. Yes, thank you.
Before you read the statement, can you explain what the maglev is, just in case the public has no idea what we're talking about?
Certainly. The SC Maglev project is a proposed high-speed rail link between Washington, D.C. and Baltimore, ultimately going up to New York City. Claims by SC Maglev officials of a 300-mile-an-hour trip from we'll cut travel times from D.C. to New York to an hour. Some of the statements made by the officials seem to be dubious based on the requirements for how much track and how much time is necessary to accelerate to those speeds. More so, we're concerned over the environmental and community impacts that this will have on our school communities. So in short, the maglev is a very fast train that will be above and then below ground through some of our communities. Okay, so take a moment to read our draft position statement, and as I understand, this will be posted on board docs for public comment and review. The Board of Education of Anne Arundel County exists to provide oversight to Anne Arundel County Public Schools in its mission to educate all of our students to be well prepared for college and the workforce, and to empower them to create a better quality of life for themselves, their communities, and the next generation. As such, the board hereby expresses its adamant opposition to the proposed high-speed Baltimore-Washington superconducting maglev train project, known as SC Maglev. Under the current proposed routes, 4 of our elementary schools, Ridgeway, Overlook, Hebron-Harmon, and Linthicum, are situated directly in the path of the SC Maglev. These schools, which enroll more than 2,200 students combined, and the communities they serve, would suffer severe and potentially irreversible impacts wrought by a transit system that would offer little in the way of local benefit. The environmental impacts of this project would be significantly detrimental to our students and their families, both on and off school property. While underground routes may result in less direct damage to property and potentially eliminate the need to relocate schools, they do not eradicate this concern entirely. Emergency exits and ventilation portals, for example, would still require above-ground easements and construction. Additionally, underground routes continue to create concerns about noise, vibrations, and safety for our students and staff. Given the high costs, extremely limited local benefit for area residents and commuters, and the potential significant disruption to our school communities, we firmly oppose the construction of the proposed SC Maglev project.
Mr. Granon.
Mr. Reinhardt, what are the proposed stops for this train in Anne Arundel?
So in Anne Arundel, the existing stop is BWI Airport.
Just one?
As of this time, there are discussions to have another stop located at Port Covington, just over the line.
Ms. Sasso.
Can you just add in the schools, the elementary schools that are affected, the Odenton Elementary will be gone too?
I think they removed the Odenton route. They took that one off the table. Are there any other board comments? So this will be put out on board docs, and it will be an action item at the next meeting for a board vote. Yes, Mr. Reinhardt.
If I may, I do have one question regarding utilities at these 4 elementary schools we've mentioned, if Mr. Sheknovich is available to answer a question. So the question is, are Ridgeway, Overlook, Hebron-Harmon, or Linthicum, are any of those serviced by septic tanks or underground heating oil tanks?
Off the top of your head.
He knows everything.
Shoot them at me one at a time.
Ridgeway, septic or underground heating oil?
Not septic and not underground heating oil.
Okay. Overlook?
Overlook has gas and not septic.
Okay. Hebron-Harmon?
Hebron-Harmon's gas, not septic.
Okay. And Linthicum?
Linthicum is oil, not septic.
So the oil tanks are located underground?
Correct.
That is impressive, sir. That is amazing. Wow.
So it just came to me. The reason I'm asking that question now is I was recently informed that potential boring machines and the depth of the tunnels could impact underground septic or oil tanks as well, resulting in costs from relocation of those. So, thank you.
That is the end. The next Board of Education meeting is Wednesday, November 1st, 2017 at 10 a.m. The next Board Policy Committee meeting is Wednesday, November 8th, 2017 at 1 p.m. Do I have a motion to adjourn? All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Curriculum to improve
Your
your chances
education.
for education.
Interesting. Well, thanks for sharing that.
You're
It's good to know somebody else's education and culture. That's why I say heart-to-heart conversations, because I want to know more about you and your culture and your family as well. So interesting facts.
But
Thank you.
what I'm giving you in my situation I'm 70 years old, so what I'm giving you is a history.
Right.
So it's totally
But it's good
different
to
than
know
what
that.
we have today. Yes, it's totally different.
Right. So, why did you move to the United States?
I have been in the United States many times since
Okay.
1967. I migrated to the United States in 1990. I came to do business with represent factories in Jordan. I arrived on the 6th of April 1990. In 2 weeks I realized I couldn't do it, so I bought a business. I started a business and incorporated in the 20th of April. 2 weeks later I incorporated with a grand opening 2 months later with employees, with large store. So I figured this is, and I hope at that time that I will be temporarily to go back and forth to Jordan. So 2 or 3 years later I had to settle where my business is. With a land of opportunity, of course.
That's what I was about to say. So